Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening, we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign-in sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. And we have a series of committee meetings this evening and then a regular session of council. We start with City and Safety Services.
Thank you, President Grell.
Please.
We have 3 items on our agenda for the City and Safety Services Committee this evening, and we're starting with an annual report from our Commission on Disabilities. We have Davey McNally here to help present as chair, and we have several other members of the Commission here as well, so I will turn it over to them at this point.
Okay, so first of all, we'll just introduce ourselves really fast. I'm Davey McNally. I'm the chair of the Athens City Commission on Disabilities. Michelle?
I'm Michelle Hahn. I am a member of the commission and the co-chair of the Outreach and Communication Committee.
I'm Allie Hughes, and I am secretary on the commission exec team, and I am also co-chair of the Accessibility and Advocacy Committee.
I'm Carolyn Bailey Lewis. I'm treasurer of the commission, also on the Outreach and Communications Committee, and a member of the exec team.
So this is our year-end report. Every year we give a year-end report just to highlight some of the work that we've been doing. Of course, we've been coming pretty regularly to meetings recently to just bring up concerns to City Council and to administration. But we want to go over our years of work as well as, what we'd like to see moving forward. So we have, this past year, we've had 11 members on our commission. We hold our monthly meetings every 3rd Wednesday. And of course, this is for the public too. So if anyone wants to get involved, the 3rd Wednesday of every month at the community center, 5:30 p.m., pretty much like clockwork, we have our meetings. We have an accessibility and advocacy committee as well, outreach and communications, and our executive team. And we're very busy as a commission. We like to get things done. We like to move things forward. And Diane Bouvier couldn't make it tonight, so I'm taking over her slides, and I just remembered that. So these are the people who are on our commission this past year. You can read through. But we really appreciate everyone. Everyone does great work. Everyone has something that they do. Ellie, do you care to take that one?
No problem. So as far as the powers and duties for the commission, it recommends city services related to needs of persons with disabilities. We also act as a liaison between members of the community and local government. We respond to questions from the public, local government, and community. And we really serve as, I kind of see us as that connector, the glue between, these different pieces that are going on. We also consult with Athens city officials, city council, and citizens. And we also inform the city of grant opportunities, which has been really successful in the past. We're really proud of that, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And we also submit activity reports and recommendations to the Athens City Council.
The 6th annual Walk, Talk, and Roll was held last year. I'll talk a little bit about these highlights, but Allie and Michelle will expound more on them. We work with you, City Council, for improved uptown accessibility. We consult on sidewalk projects and the city park audit, and we consult with businesses. We have had some input on Union Street. We also write letters to the editor and to the editor. We have conversations from Studio B on WOUB occasionally. And the ABC matching grant to improve accessibility for businesses was not funded this year. We really appeal to you to fund that again, because I tell you, it makes a difference for a person in a wheelchair with a stroller. A good example is, years ago I went to Brennan's and there was a lip there. And so I talked to Josh and he put a little wooden board there which helped to get in. So with the funds from the grant, he was able to get a beautiful door, and now all I have to do is push the button and go in. So Dave and I were having lunch one day, and we said, the door is really nice, but there's still that little wooden piece down there. And Davey looked it up right as we were sitting in there, and I sent it to him, emailed it to him, to Josh, and within the next week, he had a beautiful rubber piece there, and it just makes all the difference, that grant money. So I appeal to you to reconsider that. It makes a difference for those of us who deal with disabilities every day. We celebrate our 20th anniversary of the Disability Commission and the 10th annual Athena Award. It was a beautiful celebration. I keep using beautiful, I gotta stop there. It was a great celebration, a wonderful celebration. And I thank President Cowell and of course Micah, who's on the commission, for being there and for lending their support. And Michelle will talk about that more. We developed accessibility matrix and regularly shared with city officials to point out issues that we were facing. We met with engineering and public works and gave feedback on plans. And we appointed a member to the pedestrian accessibility and bicycle task force, which is Michelle.
So thank you. Our accessibility and advocacy committee, which is chaired by myself, Allie Hughes, and Lisa Simpson, we conducted the Walk, Talk, and Roll of Uptown Athens, which is another event that we welcome everybody to attend. It's, one of those things that we get to not only see beautiful Athens, but also talk about what we can improve and what has already been improved in our area. We highlighted those improvements and those ongoing issues by walking, talking, and rolling. And we had 80 attendees combined, which was pretty close to what we see just about every year. We also collaborated with EPW about Uptown Union Street projects. And we also had matching grant fund with the city completed to improve accessibility, as was mentioned earlier. So we have new door openers, new ramps, accessible entrances, and even new furniture. But as Carolyn mentioned, it was not funded this year. So as far as the accessibility consultations, this is free and open to the public. All they need to do is contact us and request, and we're able to meet them at their property, their business, and provide them a consultation. And we consulted for Stroud's Run, Athens Photo Project, and also the Alexander Schools this year.
Again, I'm Michelle Hahn, co-chair of the Outreach and Communication Committee, and I want to go back a couple slides just so that I can highlight before I forget this quilt, which was unveiled, whatever, during our commemoration celebration this year. It was created by Diane Bouvier, one of our members. It is substantial and incredible all at the same time. Okay, So we did host our 20th anniversary this year celebration, at the same time we were offering, the city was awarding the 10th annual Athena Award, which recognizes the work of somebody in the city with the outcome of something accessible. And this year, our awardee was Lisa Weigel with the Alexander Inclusive Playground Project. She was very surprised. It was a great thing. It was really fun to do. We got a lot of really great coverage. You could watch it live on the live stream, which is really fun. And we also provided excellent coverage of the walk, talk, and roll, just making sure people knew what was happening, got to see what was going on, and knew a lot about it. Next year, first Wednesday of November, we'll have our 11th Athena Award, so please attend. It really was a lot of fun. We had catering by Mauvette, which was just delicious. And I think the reason a lot of people came was because Mauvette was catering.
It helps.
Yeah, a really fantastic guest speaker, Jennifer Kuchera, who did a really fantastic job talking about disability justice and accessibility. The executive team is the chair, not a doctor, Davey McNally, Vice Chair Diane Bouvier, Dr. Diane Bouvier, who's not here, Secretary Dr. Ellie Hughes, Treasurer Dr. Carolyn Bailey-Lewis, and I'm just sitting here as a future doctor.
All right.
She's working on it.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Joe Brumfield, who's ending his service on the commission. And Joe is a great and talented artist and just person to get to know. And so we appreciate their dedication, honor, humor, and talent. His honor also, and his talent.
So, like I said, you can always come to any of our events, but our meetings are open to the public. Anyone is welcome to attend. If you're interested, please feel free to join one of our committees. You can attend anytime, come to a commission meeting, just get involved in the work that we're doing and support the efforts we're making to improve accessibility in the city. You can email the Disabilities Commission at ci.athens.oh.us. Let us know if you need accommodations to participate in any event. We do virtual attendance in that case. Feel free to visit, and share the Commission's Facebook page, facebook.com/Athens Commission on Disabilities. I should be more active there, but working on it.
So now we get to requests and opportunities. As we've been here over the last few months, we really need, as a city, to fix Uptown. It is in very poor condition for accessibility. There are some opportunities to do it. There's a construction project happening right now. But again, that's just one intersection of Uptown, and it doesn't fix the actual crosswalks. The crosswalks are still completely in disrepair, and even within the crosswalks, there's grates that you sink down into. As one of Joe Brumfield's flyers says, getting around should not have to be an adventure. You should be able to get from point B to point A uptown, and it be safe for you. And we need just regular maintenance. If there's a pothole in a crosswalk, like there is where State Street and Court Street are right now, which you'll see on the next slide, it's been there for years. It's right where the curb cut leads into the crosswalk, and it would be great just to have regular funding to get that done. We would like for a city administration designee to regularly attend commission meetings. We did have Lacey come to our last accessibility committee meeting, which was on Friday, so we thank you for that. And Steve came to, I think, our last commission meeting in November too, which we appreciate. So we'd like to just continue to have that. We did ask for a meeting with city administration, with Andy and EPW. in our October letter. That has not happened as of yet. We would still like that to happen. Andy kind of pushed back, saying that he wanted to wait until January or February. So we're still waiting on that meeting to happen as well.
Okay, so next steps, so requests and opportunities. So we want to have a completed ADA transition plan that will give updates to the Disability Commission and also complete a 10-year Athens sidewalk plan. We also want to collaborate to ensure community accessibility concerns are addressed, and this needs to be a living document, and it just so happens we have that living document in the accessibility matrix that we have created as a team and as a commission. Moving forward, we'd love for that to live on our website through the city commission, but we haven't been able to get that opportunity yet. So we are waiting for that, and we would love to push that forward in this year. And we also want the reinstatement of the accessibility matching grants program. Obviously, we've talked about this a lot here, and it works, and we're all benefiting from it. And so I think it's really time to move that forward.
And I forgot to mention in the slide before as well that the Sunday Creek Consulting, am I saying the right thing? Sunday Creek Consulting?
Horizon.
Sunday Horizons?
Sunday Creek Horizons.
Okay, Sunday Creek Horizons. We would very much like to work with them over this course of this year to regularly meet with Sunday Creek Horizons consulting firm. We're not sure what background they have in ADA transition plans, but I think having the local disabled community be involved in that early in the process is good, of course. Did I do the thank you at the end? I think I do, right? My phone just stopped. So thank you. I think, we've been really speaking up and voicing what our concerns are. I think people are listening to us for the most part. I think, I submitted on City Source on Friday. Whenever I tried to park uptown for that meeting, I couldn't park anywhere. There was snow piled up along next to all the accessible parking spots. So I couldn't park anywhere. Eventually I went into the parking garage. There's just one spot that was open for me that I could take. When I got here today, because the choir's going on next door, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to park anywhere uptown. I might have to just park the other way or in the street or something. And there were 2 spots that were shoveled. So it wasn't all 5 of the van accessible spots, but 2 were shoveled, one of which I could take. So I just had one option each time, and I was lucky to get it. So, things like that. So I think maybe that was heard and acted on, and appreciate that. And I think, we want to make improvements. I think a lot of times the slideshow looks pretty similar. We'd like to get a lot of this accomplished so that the slideshow can look different. So we can say, wow, here's how we got uptown done. Here's how we can get from point A to point B uptown, instead of talking about it every year like we had the last 5. Anything else? Did I say enough? Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. We appreciate the report, and our procedures at this time call for any comment from our administration. So I would invite any comment from the mayor before we invite comment from the public and then council.
Thank you, Councilmember McCary. I want to applaud Davey for pointing out with the project that's taking place at Court and Union, you've noticed that there are barricades up for the ADA ramps that are being replaced and put in, and they're lifting bricks in that area too. But it was Mr. McNally that pointed out that the, bear with me.
Truncated dome.
Thank you, truncated dome. I even wrote it down. But that the truncated dome mats that are the detectable mats that are on the transition points, that they were installed incorrectly. We reached out to the contractor. They have been pulled up and reapplied correctly. Thank goodness it was just a matter of removing the bolts, putting them in correctly and remounting the bolts, as opposed to them being the types of truncated dome mats that are embedded into the concrete. So thank goodness that didn't happen. But Mr. Mr. McNally, it's because of you and you're identifying that issue that we were able to get that corrective action taking place with those transition points. I've already spoken to the number of projects that we have done that are ADA related in the city of Athens. The most notable is that we did put out to bid the ADA curb cuts or ramps proposal, to where, if you remember, we received over $1 million from DOT, and we got good bids back. The good news was that the lowest bidder came in at a little more than 700,000, as opposed to the engineer's estimation of it being $1 million plus. So therefore, we're working with DOT to see if we can start selecting other sites. They have to be new ramps or replacement ramps if a ramp is in poor condition. So we're looking to see how we might be able to stretch that remaining almost $250,000 for more improvements than we had planned for initially, which was significant unto itself. I believe it was 25 to 30 curb cuts that are ramps that we were going to be replacing, but this allows us now to spread that even further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, we invite any comments on the presentation from the Commission on Disabilities from the public. All right, seeing none, members of the committee who are on council may ask questions or share comments at this time. Councilmember Swink?
Just a quick question. You gave us a date in November for the Athena Awards. Do you have a date set for the Walk, Talk, and Roll yet?
So we're currently planning, but in order to get more folks interested and also to maybe better weather, we used to have it in June, and it was pretty rough by the end of the walk as far as heat goes, and there were no students. So instead, we're talking about having it in the spring. So we'll keep you all updated. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make it pretty interactive this year, so it may look a little bit less like a walk and more like stations that you go and experience different aspects, and for people in city administration too, to show like a before and after, to show the work that's done, and businesses as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? Councilmember Wood?
Yeah, you mentioned the grant. How much was it for? What could we do to restore it? That's maybe a question for the mayor. But how much are we talking about? What's the...
It was $30,000 in matching grants, so it was a 50-50 split between businesses or building owners in order to make improvements. And that was 2 years ago that it was implemented. We were able to award all of that out.
Councilmember Cloudfelder?
And I know that the mayor addressed this, but I would like to echo his point that I hope that you realize what a strong disabilities commission you are. That, Davy's move was just key, noticing that those truncated domes had been installed incorrectly, and it sounds like you knew how to contact city administration right at that moment, and you got it addressed at the point in construction that was happening. And that, I don't think that happens everywhere. And I think it's because you guys are strong and you get attention focused on the things you need it focused on. And I know things aren't perfect, but what the mayor just said, if a bid came in less than they expected and it was a no-brainer to use the rest of the money to fix more curbs. I also don't think that happens everywhere. So kudos to you guys for being one of the most effective city commissions we have.
Thank you.
And we like each other.
Yeah.
We do all work well together, and it was Friday, so it was still like, people who are walking, who aren't on who aren't as wide as I am with the wheels, they could get onto the curb cuts. I couldn't, so I couldn't get from the city hall over to it. So Stephanie Hunter, who's here, kicked like the ice and the snow out of the way so I could get there. And then we stood in the middle of the crosswalk, and we stopped cars for a few turns while we talked it out. I'm like, that's if someone was trying to walk who was blind or visually impaired, they would end up not on the other side if they followed the truncated dome. So yeah, it's a group effort for sure.
Any other questions or comments from committee members at this time? Seeing none, I will thank once again the Commission on Disabilities for their report, and we'll continue on to the next of our City and Safety Services Committee agenda items.
If I may, Chair, thank you very much. We really appreciate your work. We'll give a moment for the commission to reseat themselves. And I will ask that the members of the City and Safety Services Commission stay at the dais after this, since we had the presentation, but other members of council to join the audience members. So that Member McCary, the chair, Member Reisner, Member Swank, and Member Thomas, please stay at the dais. Thank you.
All right, proceeding with our City and Safety Services Committee meeting agenda, we next will discuss an amendment to Ordinance 15-22, which proposes increasing the authorized expenditure for the West State Street restroom facility project to $300,000. This project has faced challenges during the bidding process, with previous bids exceeding the authorized budget. The proposed amendment accounts for these cost challenges while enabling the adoption of a more cost-effective prefabricated solution that meets the project's needs. Just from the relevant language in the ordinance, Section 1 reads that Ordinance 15-22 is hereby amended to authorize the City and Safety Services Director to spend up to $300,000 for the construction and implementation of the West State Street Park restroom facility. Section 2 reads that this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and approval by the mayor. At this time, I will invite any comments from administration. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything?
Just to add, or not really to add, just to kind of echo what you were saying, that we're asking for an increase of $50,000 to this particular project for a prefab. We did put this out to bid several times, and we either received really high bids or we didn't receive bids at all for trying to build a new restroom facility down at the West State Street ball fields. And so this is, Director Catherine Ann Jordan did a lot of research on this particular prefabbed restroom, and it'll serve well down there. We will likely not be able to get this installed before Sandlot starts their season this year, but it will be this summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have any questions or comments from the public on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll ask for any questions or comments from committee members. All right, Councilmember Swank.
We're now into 2025, and I understand we're only 13 days into it. But Mr. Mayor, have you, talking with your colleagues, particularly with the National League of Cities and Ohio Municipal League, has there been any conversation that when bids are let, that bids offered are going to be more in line with the original estimates? Is there any moderation in price that you're hearing? What I'm getting at is, I don't know when the last time we bid this, if there's any value in rebidding, or if that's just a waste of time at this point in time.
Councilmember Swank, I'm not going to say it's necessarily a waste of time, but I have spoken to not only my colleagues with the National League of Cities, but also the Ohio Municipal, or the Ohio Mayors Association and Alliance. And it's still an issue, still a big issue, with bids coming in higher than anticipated. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're not going to see much of a change in that until we start to see interest rates coming down and things of that nature, to where all things buildable will have a change in price point.
Do we have any other questions or comments from committee members at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our next City and Safety Services agenda item. An amendment to Ordinance 56-22, which seeks to increase authorized expenditures for the tennis and pickleball courts project to $350,000. This increase addresses some necessary repairs due to some issues with iron oxidation bleeding through the asphalt surface. So this amendment ensures that the project can proceed with sufficient funding to be completed. And the relevant Section 1 language indicates that Ordinance 56-22 is hereby amended to authorize the City and Safety Services to expend up to $350,000 for repairs and recoating of the tennis and pickleball courts. Section 2 indicates that this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and approval by the mayor. We will move to any comments from the administration if Mr. Mayor has any.
Again, just to reiterate what you were saying, this would increase by $21,750. So it's to correct the high level of iron that was in the asphalt mix that was laid down, which led to bleeding through the painted surface. So this would be corrective action to this on top of the already $329,000 total project.
For a total of $350,000. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, questions or comments from committee members on this agenda topic? Councilmember Swank?
Ryan, do you have those slides that you can put up, please? Did you get the pictures in there?
All right.
Okay. This is not Haley's comment. This is a picture taken of the new tennis courts. And what we got was a batch of very high iron content asphalt, the underlayer. And that was painted and all of that. I've worked with the leading tennis company up in the Columbus area to have this all explained. And what happens is this bleeds through. Where it becomes a problem, other than the fact that it's ugly as heck, because there are tens of thousands of these on the tennis courts down there, these little things that look like the head of a comet, they begin to rupture and raise up. And what can happen there is if you're an avid tennis player, eventually gets to the point where balls you think are going to bounce and go straight towards you, bouncing up in Pomeroy. Also what happens is those things fracture and begin to come apart, and water gets in there and it just exacerbates the problem, particularly when you get weather like we've had this week and last week and we'll have this week with the freeze and the thaw. Ryan, can we see the other one, please? Yeah, it gives you a little more of a close-up view. And these courts have been there for less than a year. So I guess I have a question. I was going to direct this to Director Stone, but I guess to the mayor. Have we been in touch with the general contractor on this to see if there's any help that they can give? And what I'm wondering is, in the original bid specifications, was the iron content laid out as to what was acceptable, or did we just happen to get some bad asphalt?
I don't know, Councilmember Swank, whether it was in the bid specs to where it spoke to actual iron content within the aggregate. I can certainly find that out for you, but I know that we can, and I won't say likely because I've not spoken to Director Catherine Ann Jordan about whether she has engaged with the general contractor on the asphalt portion of the project. As a matter of fact, I don't remember off the top of my head who that contractor was. Yeah. We can find out though, and I will certainly find out whether she has.
Yeah, because this is I think one of those lessons we learn from experience as we continue to expand our recreational opportunities and other asphalt things in the city. You know, this might be okay on a street, but on a surface where people are playing, it causes some real problems. But $22,000 to get this rectified, maybe if they can pick up some of it, would certainly help our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Swank, for the extra effort you put into documenting those visuals. Do we have any final questions, comments from committee members? All right, that concludes our discussion of tennis and pickleball courts, project number 350, which is our final agenda item for City and Safety Services this evening.
Thank you, Member McCary. We will now move on to Planning and Development Committee. This is chaired by Member Swank, joined by Member Thomas, Member Spielness, and Member Wood.
Okay, the Planning Development Committee on the printed agenda has 3 bullet points, 3 items, but in actuality, we only are going to have 2 this evening. We can strike the second one, Hilltide Litech project at 111 Hooper Street. The reason for the deletion of the Hilltide program is that I received a communication from the attorney, David Mott, today, that because the state will be changing some of the requirements, rules, and regulations of the program, they wanted to put their proposal on hold until those all played out. They didn't think it was in the best interest of their company or the city to start a project and then to have to redo it. So they probably will be coming back to us, but it will probably not be until at least late February, March, or maybe even early April. That said, we do have a third entity that has applied for the LIHTC program. And this evening, Dr. David Funk will have a presentation for us on the project that he's looking at, and particularly the possibility of economic development here in the city of Athens. So, Dr. Funk, if you would like to come to the podium, I introduced you, but please tell us who you are and your address for the record, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Alan. David Funk, I'll do a little introduction in my slides. I'm here to talk about affordable housing. It comes in many different forms, but I really wanted to focus on the LIHTC projects tonight, low-income housing tax credit projects, and just provide a little bit of perspective on them. So there we go. Yeah, I'm native of Athens, went to Ohio University, got my PhD at Wisconsin, directed the real estate program at Cornell for 10 years, taught in the law school there, and currently executive director of the American Real Estate Society. Founded Capstone Property Management back in 1987 to provide income for my parents during their life with the mission to donate all income after that to the county of Athens. So here we are. What Capstone does is 4 main things. We do affordable housing, community projects, historic preservation, and woodlands. Woodlands is probably our biggest activity to date. We've protected 3,500 acres in Athens County. Sometimes we'll get a wild hair to plant some trees in odd formations out in the fields, but we do quite a bit of tree planting. So I'm often asked to speak on affordable housing and housing economics at national conferences. I'd much prefer to talk about my favorite topic, which is King Midget Cars of Athens, Ohio, but I never get that opportunity. But anyhow, just little background on LIHTC. There are 9% projects and 4% projects. There will only be one 9% project in Athens County in any given year. That's the requirement for rural counties. And one of the realizations with LIHTC, which is funded through the Ohio Housing Finance Association or agency, is that you have to have a track record. And so LIHTC is very much a closed house of developers. It's a pretty small knit group, and it's not a club that wants to have other people come in and compete against them. And so, that's the challenge. You have to have a developer with a track record to be able to submit a project to OFA for either the 9% or the 4%. So in Athens, the dark maroon is where you get the maximum points, and there's pretty much the recognition that since there's only one 9% project in Athens, the scoring will go that it will be in that maroon area. So that's why Spire is focused on Pomeroy Road, why Hilltide is focused in this area. Essentially, there's no sense in doing any other project anywhere else because you will lose on the scoring system in OFA. So, that's why we've seen so much interest in that part of Athens. I can share this. Projects, you can go to the OFA website and you can see all of their data there. and this is the a recently funded project in the Plains by WODA. And some of the highlights with it, it's a $19 million project to develop 51 units of senior housing. The majority are one bedroom. And $2.2 million in terms of site development, hard costs of 10.7. Hard costs is the construction component. Soft costs would be things like architecture, design, that. So also, big part of this is a developer's fee of $3 million that goes to WODA for putting this project together. If you break it down into a cost per unit, and I had to estimate square footages are probably a little bit larger than most of the units will be, but it's $376,000 per unit. Comes out to cost of $374 per square foot for the total project cost. If you look at hard costs, only $313. So these are pretty expensive units. We'll look at why that might be. So when you look at the source of funds, LIHTC, and I'm sorry for kind of doing the background methodology here, but sometimes it's new to folks. OFA will provide a LIHTC distribution, that is tax credits. So tax credits will be a percentage, well, they'll be the amount that is eligible for a tax credit. When you receive a tax credit, then you syndicate that, and usually those tax credits are sold at 86, 87 cents on the dollar. So the $8 million here is LIHTC equity that comes through doing a LIHTC project. What's unique about Athens County is that we're in an Appalachian set-aside area. So there's a boost of 4.8 million in addition to that, and a housing development HDAP grant of $4 million. So essentially the developer here is getting a loan for $876,000 and a shortfall of 1.3 in their capital stack. So think of it this way: the developer is having to put in $2.1 million on a $19 million project. So over on the operating side, you'll see the annual operating, and there is annual income of $128,000. But the concept here is that it creates very needed affordable housing for Athens County. But there's a reason why all these developers are chasing these projects in Athens County. They're lucrative. A $3 million developer fee, and in this case, WODA will probably do their own construction. So, a profit center there, estimated around $3.5 million. So that total project is, once it's complete, $6.5 million of profit. So what I did is I looked at the last 8 years of LIHTC projects in Athens and created 595 units of housing. That's good. Probably the highest number of LIHTC projects per capita in the state of Ohio have been in Athens because of the Appalachian set-aside and our qualified census tract. $17 million in developers fees, $128 million of direct project costs over the last 8 years. And if you see here, it's getting larger and larger due to inflation and other factors. And, the sum conclusion here is that for most of these projects, they haven't had local jobs, local participation, no local developers. And so, $128 million has been infused into the Athens economy, but it really hasn't circulated at all. If it had, if it was spent locally, local jobs, you usually apply a conservative multiplier of 2.2, and so it'd be $282 million of local economic impact if these projects had been done locally. So, in talking to, the people in the trades out there and builders, what's happened over the last, decade is that the large projects have taken out the market opportunity to do the 4 units, the 8 units. And this is in no way saying that, the affordable housing that's being created is fantastic, but it's tended to take jobs away from the local builders. And they're left to, work in Columbus, work in the Hocking Hills, do a single home here, a single home there. The Athens Builders Association is disbanded simply because, it's what was a vibrant community 10 or 15 years ago, just isn't getting the work. But you could consider, what if all this work had gone to them? We'd probably have a vibrant community of builders, a vibrant community of local suppliers, the Florimores of the world that would be supplying to these projects. Another part of LIHTC is that it targets, you have to set aside a certain number of units at the 50% adjusted medium income. And for Athens County, that's $32,950. At 60%, it's $39,000, which is good. I mean, that is providing affordable housing to that group of folks. One of the challenges is the most desperate group is the group at SSI. And our phone rings off the hook with folks that are getting $943 a month. And what a LIHTC project will do is try to select the best candidates right up at the limit of income, which isn't necessarily that pool of the most desperate folks in Athens looking for housing. So something to think about. So all of this is to say, don't really have a solution, a great one, but I do want to put in front of this group and maybe get a conversation going about what could we do to create a maybe public-private support services type of partnership that would keep these projects local, keep the income local, keep the jobs local, help to rebuild an Athens County Builders Association. Something that I think would be very important is to do a project that would target the lower AMI, that would target 30% AMI or provide housing for the people at the SSI of $943 a month. And if done right, there's enough resources here, enough income coming off these projects to create an endowment fund. Imagine what one could do with $6 million off one single project in terms of furthering other affordable housing initiatives or initiatives in Athens County in general. So, just throwing that out. It is critical to have some entity having a project under the belt. I would be happy to help foster that if it's locally create a nonprofit or a private entity that would want to step forward. And maybe the vision would be get one under our belt, and then maybe that becomes a catalyst for doing future projects kept locally in Athens. This is, by the way, there's not real models for this. This would be really creative for Athens to put together this type of partnership. But, eyes on the prize. Imagine a day where we were providing our own affordable housing with local jobs, keeping the money here, and no profit to a private developer, but profit to an endowment fund that just continues the ball rolling forward. So that's all I had. Throw it out there to maybe spark a conversation.
So we'll start with the administration. Mr. Mayor, any comments, questions for Dr. Funk? Anything to start the conversation, sir?
Thank you, Councilmember Swank. No, Mr. Funk and I, along with Director Stone, we had our own private meeting with Mr. Funk a couple weeks ago and pretty much heard the same, went through the same PowerPoints and listened to the same thing. And so I think that this would be really interesting to be able to pull together various entities that might be interested in trying to apply for LIHTC themselves. I think that there's a real opportunity. We just had a meeting this morning with the Athens County Foundation Alumni Board, and discussing affordable housing and housing in the city of Athens, to include the Sunset Motel, which is a whole different type of housing, which props to HAPCAP and to Athens County Foundation for all the work under Co-Create. But I think, using an entity such as Athens County Foundation as a organization to bring stakeholders together to start really thinking this through. Because Mr. Funk's correct in that, under this OFA program, with LIHTC housing, it does require someone getting their foot in the door to begin with, and therefore, and delivering, because that's the other part of that equation, is being able to, actually finish a product that people can move in and live in. Then they're recognized as something, an entity that could move forward and do this in the future. This would all be for not only workforce housing, but could be for senior housing under LIHTC, which is the two different buckets. I'm going to say something that you have heard before, because I think that's important to have during this conversation, and that is the other piece of this puzzle when it comes to housing units, is housing units that people are building equity in and earning wealth to help them too, which is a whole different avenue, because that typically isn't in the LIHTC realm, where they're typically rental units within LIHTC to where people are renting or leasing these properties versus outright purchasing them and developing wealth. But I appreciate the conversation.
As long as you can do either a family project or a senior project, then once you have that under your belt, you can do any type of like project. I'm not here to pitch anything or ask for anything. I would be willing to be the guinea pig to do that first project, but only with community support. That's the point. And then, if someone has to do the first project, if the project was done, then the idea would be turn that over to some other entity to do future projects. I'm not, it will be a lot of work. Not interested in doing this for the next 10 years, but be willing to do one, but be happier if someone else wanted to be the starting point.
Members of the public, including members of council, over there. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, members of the committee. Start at the end and we'll work our way this way.
Thank you very much. Creative. So, as chair of the Affordable Housing Commission, and we have a whole development ideas, I'd be more than happy to get together with some of you, brainstorm some ideas.
Good.
And we have been bouncing around some ideas. Athens, all kinds. The ideas that the city's talked about is the Welcome Home Project. But beyond that, there's the same vein, exactly.
You
Perhaps.
could do a LIHTC project within a land trust format. You would want to have maybe 3 units per building, so that you could then transition to home ownership. Now that would be fantastic. To the mayor's point earlier, the way you build economic security is not being a renter, but being a homeowner. And if you could put together a LIHTC project with a long tail within a land trust, so that that renter is earning their home ownership, great. That's accomplishing all your goals.
Well, I would love to talk with you more about that. This is my passion, so I've got a million questions, but we don't have time. We have a long enough agenda already. So, but I do have one question, and that is, who is building this stuff, the LIHTC projects? Like, I know for a fact that the Woda Cooper project down at Kershaw Green, and I'm not going to name a name, but a local builder was asked to participate and chose not to. For a bunch of different
Woda and
reasons.
Fairfield have their own construction companies, and that's a part of their secret sauce. That they're, in a sense, they're hiring themselves to do the construction.
So, I mean, I'm real interested in that too, because obviously we want to have our local builders be happy. I know a lot of these builders on your list, so
Yeah.
we want to make them happy.
Member Wood.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this. We're really lucky to have somebody with your resume thinking of these kind of things, and really appreciate that. One of the things that really sticks out to me is the kind of closed house issue. And a lot of the projects that come down to us, they come with lobbyists from Columbus as well. They've got this whole built-in perpetuating system. That's their business model. And they're making a nice revenue on it, as you noted. I wonder two things. One, question for you, and then sort of question to the administration. When you say that first project, interested what that would look like more specifically, and also if for the administration, is this something we could have, a Sunday Creek help bring in that funding for and do things to help fill that role? I mean, again, these folks come with those lobbyists and those ready packaged solutions. They bring them to us, so we sort of check them off. Is it something that we can leverage those resources to help pull off the first project?
So, Stripe reached out to me to partner. I've had other developers reach out. The first project is you're pretty much going to lose money doing it as the partner that's trying to get one under their belt, because again, it's a closed club. Sunday Creek Horizons works very closely with WODA, so that there might be a conflict of interest there. I think the idea is to just do something locally. If you want to think about organizations, Buckeye Hills is very enthusiastic about getting in to affordable housing. They reached out for some help in a project in Marietta. So, that would be the sort of thing to look to, that type of organization, or an organization that we just create ourselves as a nonprofit for this distinct purpose. And then again, once we do one, we're off to the races. And in terms of, it's all about scoring. Now, unfortunately, a letter from the city or the commissioners doesn't carry weight with OAF anymore. It's just pure scoring. That's why, someone's going to win the project in the dark maroon category, whether it's a great project or not. They're just going to complete the scoring, X number of units, and they're going to win. What could tip things into our favor in the future is the ability to go to lower AMI units, which would score very well, probably would not pencil out for most developers. But if it was a true partnership where we're going to provide local support services, be willing to take a little bit of a loss, and these are lucrative enough you may not have to take the loss, then we could score well and provide a better service to the really challenged housing folks in Athens.
Member Thomas.
When you're talking about city support and community support, what do you see the city's role being specifically, and what kind of community support do you think we need?
That's the catalyze this conversation. I'm not sure. But this conversation could lead to Buckeye Regional connecting with HAPCAP, connecting with the Athens Foundation, all of these different players putting together a strategy to accomplish this. And maybe the city's role is helping with site selection, helping with site approvals. If it was a site in Athens, I don't know. Mayor probably has better ideas than I do on that.
Do you think after the first project, something like the Welcome Home Ohio funding would be something that would be possible, that does allow people to build equity and provide 20-year deed restrictions and on housing?
So LIHTC is set up as rental. Welcome Home Ohio is, for sale. Great program. I think the holy grail is to find support through OFA, tax dollars, to create some form of rental housing that can convert into home ownership. That's what we do at Capstone. We rent, but our goal is to have our residents become homeowners. And putting together things like, down payment assistance, all the programs out there to make it affordable for them to make that move. If we had a partnership, there might be even more opportunities to facilitate that kind of move.
Thank you.
So let's try a what if. Up until tonight, we had 2 active players. We'll add yourself as a third in this current round of LIHTC funding. And we've been operating on the information and assumption that this all had to be wrapped up by the end of February. So what if? What if, per the mayor's comment, the Athens Foundation chose to coordinate this effort, and the chamber bought in, and the local building trades folks bought in, Affordable Housing Commission signed off, Economic Development Council here in town, it's a wonderful idea, Buckeye Hills and our local vocational school, Tri-County, all bought in as firm and committed partners. Could you still participate in the 2025 funding year, or would this be something that would have to be put off till next year?
We can participate. You have an initial round where you say, hey, we might be interested in doing a project.
Drop your name in that.
So
yeah, gotcha.
We're in on that.
Okay,
and
you're
now
on.
It's 50 days of hell to get the final proposal together. But I am not interested in. This will be a losing proposition for Capstone. Only interested in doing this if it creates a model, creates something that has legs that will, someone will pick up the next one and, do future projects.
On the surface, at least personally
And
speaking.
by the way, Alan,
Yes.
if we put all that together, that is a model for the country.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is not why you are the president of National League of Cities, but could you imagine going to conferences, being able to share this model with other places around the country? But it addresses a need here in Southeast Ohio. And on the surface, and this is an observation, not a criticism, on the surface, seeing that many potential dollars escaping Athens County, when we are sometimes criticized as a city, for our approach to cultivating business, this really addresses that. And we are, in this case, putting our efforts and our money where our mouth is. So I think taking Member Sol spelling us up on this meeting on the 21st would be a great first step. But this is exciting. I taught a vocational school at Athens High School, and many of those students went into the building trades. But I also know that many of those kids later on passed me when I was going to the Columbus schools to do my yearbook work, so that they could go to work in Lancaster or Gahanna or Dublin, as opposed to being able to go to work here in Athens County.
Think of all the folks that drive to Columbus every day to be carpenters, electricians, plumbers.
Yeah,
Because they
the
can't
same
find
cars,
jobs
the
here.
same time, 5 days a week.
And Alan, you shared the idea, engaging Hocking College and Tri-County. These are $30 to $40 an hour jobs. That, when you're building at well over $300 a square foot, that's why. And part of this was just try to build awareness of the amount of money involved and the economic impact from this. I mean, my God, if this was a company that was relocating to Athens with $282 million of economic impact, we'd be dancing in the hallway. Now, in fairness, these are complicated to pull off. You need to know what you're doing. There might have Might have been the perception that we didn't have the local competency to do it. Happy to help with that. But yeah, if we can do anything to keep it here, it's a game changer.
Comments, questions, anybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
So part of this is finding the land, and I understand that you have properties. Are you considering providing some land for this project, this kind of project? Is that,
Yeah,
is that,
we're
am I
willing
understanding?
to, put forth the land for this initial project.
Okay, so you've kind of identified in your head where this might be.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, like I said, you're welcome to come, if you can, to our meeting on the 21st. I'm also meeting with the Director of Real Estate now for OU, and they're interested in all levels of housing because, you know, they need to hire people, and it's good for them to have some housing. So I could mention it to him as well.
And I just want to reiterate, my willingness to do this first project, provide the land, I would prefer not to do this. I prefer someone else step forward. I'm not interested in doing this unless it spurs a model and has legs beyond just this first project. It's all about getting one project done so we can do future ones.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is really a perfect segue to our next topic, and that is a Welcome Home Ohio program. It's interesting that Mr. Funk talked about possibly creating an endowment fund, because in a way, what the Welcome Home Ohio program does is create, not really an endowment fund, but a fund that we can continue to build these houses. I'm going to read just a little bit about this. We've talked about Welcome Home Ohio before. Essentially, the city has received $2,024,000 in grants. And with that, we hope to build 8 roughly $250,000 units, which will sell for between $130,000 and $150,000. Local banks, and then the money will get put back in so we can build more. We originally submitted an application. The state got a little bit ahead of the ball game and identified the spot that they wanted to put it. I'm not sure they drove down here or talked to anybody, but that's fine. We're not bound to what they suggested. In fact, we're looking at several sites in the city, some owned by the city and some owned by private individuals. And the plea I made, I think, last time before Christmas break, anybody wants to donate land, we'd be more than happy to take that in the city also. But this project will allow us to build approximately 8 homes that people could buy. And there are many restrictions that go with it. I know Member Thomas pointed out her concern, and I agree with 100%, that these have to be homes that are going to be homes for many, many, many years, not turned over into rentals in the next 3, 5, 10, or even 15 years. It's a rather long document, I think 27 or 28 pages. It's 808. We will not be reading those, but I will read, as Member McCary did from the ordinance, what we're going to be talking about this evening when we get to the business part of the section. Be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens. Section 1, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to enter into a development service agreement with Community Building Partners, LLC. That's the group that's working up on the ridges. Joe Ritchie, who's been here many times, in his group. And a purchasing program grant agreement with the state of Ohio for the Welcome Home Ohio program, Project 381. Section 2, 2025 Appropriations Ordinance 11524 is hereby amended by appropriating for the unappropriated balance the sum of $2 million. We'll have to amend this, $2,024,000. To the Athens Fund 250 TC Code 500 in support of the Welcome Home Ohio program. And Section 3, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend up to $2,024,000 from the Athens Enhancement Fund. The reason we're doing that, we needed to put this somewhere. This is an enhancement project for the city, and it seemed like the logical place with the administration and the auditor's direction as to how we can keep track of all this money. So with that said, I would throw it over to the administration for any additional comments or things you would like to point out, and then we'll move to the public.
Councilmember Swank, I think you covered everything well with this first piece of legislation, and then you'll talk about the second one.
It's always nice to talk about money that someone's sent your way. Members of the public, including members of council. Members of the committee? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I would just like to say that I very much hope that this can come through. I think it seems like 8 houses isn't a lot, but it's still something and could be a start to more. I mean, this is something that is being done around the state, and perhaps there's more opportunities. So I think it's a great idea. Let's see what happens.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask this question. How did we come by this money? Was there a competitive application process, grant process?
It was a grant project, or process that we went through.
Very good. Other members? Yes. Member Thomas?
Just along the lines of the maintaining it as a house and not a rental, it does have in the rules, when I went through all the paperwork and facts, that the first 5 years, the primary owner cannot rent it. After that, they may rent it, but they have to remain the primary tenant and owner for 20 years. So that's a great restriction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Are there any deficiencies in the restriction or omissions in the restrictions that anybody saw that we might need to address? We've been looking at this for about a month now. Okay. Very good. Well, Mr. President, that concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Thank you, Chair Swank. We will now move on to the Transportation Committee, chaired by Member Spielness, joined by members Clodfelter, McCary, and Reisner.
Creaky knees.
Oh, you guys always do that for me.
Yes.
I wanted to get the okay from the boss over there. Okay, so we have 2 items under Transportation Committee today, and, well, actually, more than that, because we got some things at the last minute. But the first thing is the East State Street Signal Improvements Project, number 367. This is 0125, or it will be here shortly when we get to that. So the city had received $429,658 for construction through ODOT's Small Cities Congestion Mitigation Grant. So essentially by upgrading the signals, and then we would be adding to that. But in essence, what will happen, assuming everybody passes this, is that we will improve the signaling to make the flow of traffic better, which is an important thing in any place, and certainly on East State Street, which would be great. The other thing is that additional monies is being requested, and I talked to Andy Stone about this at some length, and he said that the initial design was not as expensive as it ended up being, because they are adding an uninterruptible power supply, which makes it much safer long-term and less likely to be messed with. I'll put it easy. And there's a video detection system that will make the whole process more stable for traffic. And it's not for catching, the speeders. It's not that kind of video detection. It's how people are how the traffic is moving along. So in essence, the total now that they would like to spend, let's see, the order is $450,000. No, I'm sorry. The service is authorized to expend up to $879,658 total. But in any case, based on what I understand about how this would work, it would make our traffic smoother and easier. And so I'm going to talk about this just as the initial, because it's a committee meeting, but then we're going to talk about it as we move forward into the regular meeting. So, Mayor, do you want to add to that a little bit?
I can. Again, this would be adding $230,000 coming out of TIF, which is the fund line 593, but also out of street fund, which is 220. I'll also add, and Councilmember Spielness, you're really hitting on this, and I appreciate it. You know, with this new system and with the hot topic of AI that everyone's hearing about, and I just came back from the Consumer Electronics Show where there was some interesting things, and this is part of that, to where with the cameras, you're basically setting up a system that starts to learn changes in traffic flow, and this in particular would be on East State Street. If you think about Athens unto itself, we're kind of the inverse of a tourist community, you know, like beach towns and ski resorts and whatnot, to where, you know, we do have population ebb and flow, but it tends to revolve around Ohio University's academic year, to where we have a large population increase during late August through the beginning of May, and then it decreases significantly. And so this system will start to learn from changes in that traffic flow. It also learns on the hour changes of flow. We always see the 8 o'clock rush and the 5 o'clock rush. A traffic jam in the city of Athens is 6 cars sitting at a red light. But it's learning from that, and it's learning patterns with all of our interchanges on East State Street between 33 and the eastern boundaries of East State Street, the east boundary. So this is exciting that we're going to be able to upgrade this. The technology that we currently have in our boxes, the gear that's there, was the original gear from 2003 with the first major street improvement. And everyone recognizes, I think, that computers and technologies need to be swapped out every 5 years, give or take. And we've been pushing that boundary big time on 20 years plus with the system down there. So this will certainly make some much needed improvements to help mitigate traffic flow down through that corridor. And as we learn from this, we can see this applying to Richland Avenue. We can see this applying to West Union. We could apply this to a number of locations as we look at traffic flow in the city. But being a realist, it's that East State Street corridor that is our highest traffic volumes on a 5-lane street here in the city of Athens is East State Street.
Okay, thank you very much. And how about our people out here, including non-committee members?
Okay, Alan Swank, resident of the Far East Side, the area we're talking about. Initially in the conversation, we've heard traffic, we've heard automobiles, we've heard traffic, we've heard cars. We haven't heard pedestrians. And I'm going to speak on behalf of the people on the Far East Side and myself. I've lived over there for 41 years. Currently, crossing East State Street as a pedestrian is like playing a game of Frogger. You were lit at some of you don't remember that video game. Used to have it in the uptown, what do we call it, Cat's Den. But it is very dangerous. There's no consistency in the signals whatsoever. Sometimes when you get ready to cross, you get the white blinking light. Sometimes you stand there for 3 cycles and you get no blinking lights. So what I'm saying is the engineers know what they're doing, but I hope that we will engage members, particularly FINA, who experience this daily in terms of not only traffic flow and cars, but crossing that street. We have our community center there, we have our pool there. It's very dangerous. Second thing is, in the city we talk about sustainability. And one of the things that affects our environment more than anything when it comes to cars is cars sitting and idling. And as the mayor correctly said, 3 or 4 or 5 cars in line is a traffic jam in Athens. But there is one place where cars back up 8 and 10 deep and sit for an inordinate amount of time. These are the cars that are westbound on East State Street next to the mural as they sit in the left-hand lanes, 2, and wait for the thing to cycle through. I travel a lot. My son lives in Austin, Texas. Another place I like to go is Asheville, North Carolina. In both of those cities, they have something that we do not have here, and that is a blinking yellow caution arrow. Imagine you're on East State Street, you're sitting there at the light, the group goes through and gets up on the ramp, and then those two left turn lanes turn red. And you sit, and you sit, and you sit. And then eventually the whole thing turns red and the people come down off of 33 coming from the plains, and you sit, and you sit, and you sit. Going back to the AI thing, there are times of day, particularly early in the morning and late in the day, and when this town clears out for 4 weeks at Christmas and 14 weeks in the summertime, where you'll sit there and there won't be another car coming at you. That blinking yellow light allows you to make a left-hand turn, caution, when there's no traffic coming at you. And what it does, it reduces the amount of emissions of cars sitting there. I've calculated this, and it's in the millions of minutes in a year that we have cars sitting there when they could, with caution, turn yellow on that blinking yellow light. And I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you've been to some towns with your conference and things where you've probably seen that too. I hope not only do we take into account pedestrian crossing, but also at least take a look at that, because it does work in many, many cities around the country. This is going to be exciting. The only thing we wish we'd done back in 2003 is bury those wires, but that ship is sailed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments? Okay, well, I think anybody? Yes.
I think I'll ask one question of the mayor. I was reviewing the multimodal and active transportation section of our Athens 2040 comprehensive plan and noted that this particular technological upgrade isn't part of the goals that we were thinking about 5 years ago, but there was one on preparing for autonomous vehicles. And I wonder if, from your perspective, the autonomous vehicle piece has kind of been swept under the rug, not a pressing issue right now, and this is the technological priority that we need to pursue.
Great question, Councilmember McCary. You're right. There was a lot of conversation about autonomous vehicles here in the city of Athens. The university is still a member partnering on autonomous vehicle testing, in particular at the Russ College of Engineering and the avionics program, looking at sensors. I have noticed on occasion a vehicle that is running on the city streets that is testing those sensors with a safety driver inside them. So it's still something that this administration is keenly interested in. Again, just coming back from the Consumer Electronics Show, that was one of the hot topics there. You know, while I was in Las Vegas, there was a number of autonomous vehicle ride share exhibits, not only exhibits, but actual ride share going on, where a car is pulling up at various locations, a person gets in, there's no driver, that vehicle takes off and takes them to where they need to go. Is that something that Athens would be well suited for? We have engaged with Drive Ohio in the past, with telling Drive Ohio that we have interesting topography here in the city of Athens when it comes to brick streets, more and more roundabouts these days, which is something that autonomous vehicles are getting better at determining and learning from, as well as a higher density of pedestrians, which is another thing that AI and autonomous vehicles have become much better at detecting. One session I went to, and I apologize for digressing, but I think this is important for council and the public to hear. I found this to be fascinating, and that was that a report had just come out, and that being that injuries as well as damage to properties has decreased by 70-some% in cities that are really embracing this technology moving forward. Phoenix, Arizona, one in particular, but there's many others, not to mention international. And that was something that I found to be staggering. I was, roll back 2017 when I was at the NLC conference in Pittsburgh, and there was a Google vehicle driving around. And at the time, there were a few accidents that took place, and to think now about how as it continues to learn, it's showing itself to be safer in some instances than human-driven vehicles because of driver error as these are learning. So yes, Our fiber backbone is the way we've set it up, as we continue to have our fiber network that the city owned, that we have been thinking about that to where when the time is right, that we could actually have gear that is attached to that that helps with autonomous vehicles as well.
Good
It's
to
a
know
long
that
answer
that's,
to your question, but
yeah.
it's a good question. I mean, it's technology.
Appreciate that, thank you. One more comment or question?
Okay, go ahead.
I would just like to point out that while we're talking about smoothing the traffic and improving traffic signals, that this really would be a good leap forward in terms of the sustainability of Athens, Ohio. From what Member Swank said about saving 1 million minutes of people sitting, idling at one intersection, if we looked at all of the idling that happens on East State Street, the savings in carbon emissions from tailpipes could be really, really significant. Maybe one of the most significant changes we've made as a community. And so I really hope that this happens.
Okay, any other comments from the committee? Anything else? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to move on to the second item, which is the Stimson Bridge Project 358 construction hearing. As you know, we've talked about this before, and I'm just going to tell you right now, because, and I did send you the forward the email about these other bridges too, but I didn't get that until today, this afternoon as a matter of fact, but we're going to bring it up anyway. So, but I'll first talk about the Stimson Avenue Bridge Rehabilitation Project, and it's something we've discussed in 24, 23, and 22, so this project will be full rehabilitation of the bridge. It's been around for a long time, I think 1970, I believe, something like that. And removing and replacing the deck and parapets, rehabbing and painting the beams, repairing the abutments, and replacing the lighting with decorative lighting. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it sounds pretty, if it doesn't add too much to the cost. And there will be a separated shared use path, for those of you concerned about the pedestrians, added to the bridge on the upstream southern side. So that sounds actually pretty exciting. And let's see, it would be amending 03024, and it would be appropriating $4,470,590.19 into Fund 589, appropriating an additional $250,000 into the Fund 572 for the city's local share of the construction. And what the city wants to do is authorize a total expenditure for design, construction, and construction engineering of the, like I said, $4,470,590. And I think I'm repeating myself. In any case, so the total amount would be $5,300,590. So we need to, assuming this goes through, advertise, accept bids, obviously award a contract for construction. I think the Stimson Avenue Bridge, like we talked about, is pretty old, so we want to make sure that we keep them safe and that it's an important part of the corridor in our city. So I'm not sure if I should probably go to the other two items. Is that okay? Debbie?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so along with that, although these will be two separate ordinances, right? You'll hear more, but we wanted to have a committee meeting about it first, but in addition to this work, the city has designers working on designs for maintenance and additions on the Richland Bridge, which you notice has some issues, and over the Hocking, and the Stroud's Run Bridge, which is over US 33. This would be project 381. And those two are somewhat related because they have the same design firm, similar elements to save cost. This project would reapply the protective coating on the parapets for Richland Avenue and over the Hocking. And some of the, as you've noticed, it's looking a little shabby, the Richland one. So they also want to paint the parapet on the Stroud's Run Bridge, install anti-vandal fence on that bridge. You might have noticed there's graffiti on there. And install a City of Athens sign on the fence facing northward with similar to the lettering on the bridge over Richland Avenue, which looks really nice, I think. And this bridge, as you've noticed, like I said, has a fair amount of graffiti, and if they put this fencing in, it would be much more difficult. But beyond that, it's also safer for pedestrians and bicycles if they put that fencing up. Okay, for that, authorized expenditure over $262,000 from Fund 220, and the previous $22,000 is already appropriated in the previous year. Again, design bids, etc. So, do you want to add to that, Mayor Patterson?
Just briefly, to the Stimson Avenue Bridge project, the lighting you were referencing, it would be similar to the Richland Avenue Bridge with that type of lighting on the bridge, which currently doesn't exist. It has the old Cobra heads up there. The other project, as you mentioned, on the Richland Avenue Bridge, the original epoxy paint that they put on didn't cure properly, and therefore it's peeling off. So this would be correcting that, and then the overpass over US 33, which, as you mentioned, gets tagged every year by the next Athens high school class, gets up there and paints something on it. For years now, I have had people requesting, Mayor, can you do something to correct that? Can there be some type of decorative fencing going up there? The bridge itself is the county's responsibility. And on several occasions, I have spoken to the county commissioners about doing something like this or even partnering with them. It's not been easy, so therefore, for us to take this on and to do this project and bundle it with this, I think is the right action. My big fear, quite honestly, Councilmember Spielness, sure, it looks terrible. That's one of the first impressions when you come into the city of Athens traveling south on 33 is the way it looks. The more important one, in my opinion, is the unfortunate event for someone who is tagging the parapet to fall over the edge and harm themselves seriously or die. And so I think that it's very appropriate for us to take this action to get these corrections in place for the US 33 bridge.
Yeah, I have to admit, my question though was, do we have the right to do that since it's outside our city limits?
We do.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
We can work through an agreement with the county commissioners to say this is what we want to do, and that has already been a conversation that has begun, so it's.
Okay. Bring it out to the audience. Anybody have any comments, questions, thoughts about it, ideas, suggestions? I see a thumbs up out there. Anybody else? Okay. And the committee, anything? Yes.
I appreciate the light show that we have at our new fire station headquarters, and I appreciate that this bridge, the Stimson Avenue Bridge, would be near it. I wonder if that is a trend. I like the idea of bringing more light and dynamic kind of visuals to Stimson Avenue as we're trying to continue to upgrade that area, but are these lights going to be similar to what we would see either on the Richland Avenue passageway project that students use to go under, or is it possibly like the fire station lights themselves? Any thoughts on what these lights are going to be like?
There will be undercarriage lighting on the superstructure itself that'll accent the bridge outline as you're coming into the city of Athens. And there also will be replacement lighting on the bike path as it goes underneath the Stimson Avenue Bridge as well. So it will be lighting similar to what you're describing. Likely not as bright as I've seen the fire station headquarters lights to be sometimes, but it'll be attractive. Right. And then the lights on top will be downcast lighting, so it won't interfere with our light pollution ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. correct me if I'm wrong, if I may. I don't think I added to the conversation that I did meet with the businesses on the Stimson Avenue corridor, those that chose to come to talk about this with traffic flow. And I've mentioned this to council, I'll mention it again. And the plan is that there will be signalized traffic flow on the Stimson Avenue Bridge, so there will still be east and west traffic moving through that corridor, unlike some of the interruptions that we experienced during the previous Stimson Avenue corridor project. So this will be not unlike the Richland Avenue roundabout, Richland Avenue Bridge over the Hocking River project, where we were able to maintain traffic flow. And on that one, we were actually able to maintain traffic flow in both directions, both north and south. This will be a little bit more challenging because it's narrower, but it will be signalized for traffic to flow through that bridge project.
Well, that's important. With all the concern about the maintenance of traffic, we want to make sure that we're extra sensitive to that with all these projects. What year?
Oh, Councilmember Swank, you asked me too fast. It's coming at us soon. I believe some work will begin in this year, in 2025, and really in earnest in 2026. This won't be a long project either, is my understanding, even though we are doing complete deck replacement, but knock on wood that this is not a long project.
Okay, that's all we have for transportation for now. So we're going to move on to finance and personnel.
Thank you, Chair Spionis. We will move on to Finance and Personnel, chaired by Member Reisner, joined by Member Wood, Clodfelter, and McCary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel Committee has 3 bullet points to go over. The first is Athens County Economic Development Council amendment to Ordinance 120-24. Want to understand, as a request from the mayor to increase the contract amount from $60,000 to $65,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I believe that's on our first reading tonight. And will you need it suspended?
I don't believe so. This was an increase for, the paying members of the EDC that occurred in December of last year. And so even though this was working its way through council last year, it was just an oversight to have that increase of $5,000 annually to that. So
Okay, but there's no bill outstanding that needs to be immediately addressed.
I mean, we owe them. We're authorized to pay $60,000 right now, and
Whatever you're comfortable with, it's okay.
if council so chooses to suspend this so that we can pay the bill in full, that would be fine.
Okay, we can consider that. Heard from administration. Auditor?
We pay this bill every year. This money also comes out of our TGT money in the general fund, and they bill us every year early in the year, and then we pay that out of our first quarter earnings from that. It's been $60,000 for quite a few years. It hasn't gone up. I remember when it went up from 50 to 55, but it's over 20 years of my time, and so it's been quite a while. So I'm not surprised that they need an increase this year. But they'll invoice us this year. I don't think we've gotten it yet, but we usually pay it out of this first quarter TGT money.
Okay. Other comments from audience, members of council that are out there, TV land? We'll get to our committee members. Wood, anything? McCary? Clodfelder? No? So we'll have a first reading of this later this evening. Our next item. Internet auction. Authorizing the sale of unneeded or obsolete municipal personal property. It's the, according to the notes here, this is an annual ordinance. Yeah, I seem to recall it 11 times before. To conduct internet auctions as provided for by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 721.15, paragraph D. Any comments from the administration or auditor on internet auctions? Just out of curiosity, how successful are these? I mean, is it sort of like an eBay thing where you bid against other people and the price starts going up and you get really anxious and, no?
Councilor Reiser, I'm not 100% sure. I can find out how often this is used.
okay.
But it's just another authorized.
I'm just trying to keep awake, that's all.
You and I both. Under ORC, this is, permissible, so, and we've done it before. I can get that information for you on how often
Yeah.
it's used.
Audience, none from the other members of council? Member Clodfelder?
Well, if it sounds like it's a good thing to do, I have heard of certainly other states. The state of New York sells nearly all of its surplus material through internet auctions, and I read an article that they had written once that said they had saved something like $35 million in costs just by doing this online. So, we're not at the scale of a whole state, but it could be a beneficial thing to do.
All right. Other members of council? Committee? No? All right. So, okay, next item. Interfund transfers, requests from the auditor, and as we were just discussing before council session started, the following transfers are needed to cover the city's 2025 loan payments. $163,000 from parking garage fund to the parking garage debt fund, and $399,000 from water fund to water treatment plant improvement debt fund. And then we have one more. Following transfer will increase the fund balance to cover payroll and the 2025 expenses. $120,000 from the general fund to the cemetery fund. So that thing is rising again. Is that about? It's a dead issue. I mean, it just goes on and on.
It does. For anybody who doesn't know, we inherited the West Union Cemetery, and it's there really isn't a lot of room left there, and there's not enough revenue coming in. It's actually very little revenue coming in, and so we have to move money from the general fund in there to pay for the upkeep and necessary items for that cemetery.
Right. Administration, have any comments on this? Just to give a little background, when the cemetery started having financial problems because they made their money by selling plots, they ran out, and there's a law in the state of Ohio that says if a cemetery is now essentially defunct and needs to be maintained, the nearest municipality must take it over and maintain it. And that's just it. That's the law. The law says we will maintain it no matter what, for now and forever. So we're stuck with it, and we have to pay for it. There was a little bit of money that was left over when the initial transfer came over. I think it was something like 20-some thousand. There wasn't a whole lot. And we used that up as part of paying off the maintenance. And then there's a lot of things there that was falling apart, the fence, the mausoleum, those other issues. And we just had to keep it going. You know, it has to be mowed, it has to be trimmed, and you have to police it. So it costs the city to maintain it. So we need $120,000 for it. It's not fair, but that's the law. So this is the law has to be fair. Any comments from other members of council, committee? No? Our committee? Any issues with this? All right.
Thank you, Member Reisner. All done?
I think that pretty much takes care of finance personnel.
Excellent. We'll move on to Committee of the Whole, get the full council members back at the dais. We have 2 items under the Committee of the Whole, and these will be introduced by Member Thomas.
All right. The first item that we'll be looking at is something sent from the Ohio Municipal League to the city about a legal issue that we could join. I'm just going to give the basics of it, and then I'll read the title and the sections of the actual ordinance. Or I could read those, I guess, later, too. Basically, right before mid-December, right before everyone went on break, AT&T filed a tariff request with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, impacting government entities, including municipalities, revising that any government entity requesting the relocation and burying of communication facilities existing in a public right-of-way would then now be required to pay the cost incurred by AT&T for such a location, and basically effectively this week. Very little time was given for anyone to have an opinion or argue back. OML sent out some notices about this. I read through the OML letter that came about this also last week, I believe, the 8th or 10th. And OML's primary concern outside of this itself is that if AT&T succeeds in doing this, other entities will follow, and AEP and Columbia Gas would, likely be first up. So they have contacted our law office. The law office has responded and sent forward asking if the city would like to join and support the OML by passing an ordinance of our support, and we would look at doing that tonight. At this point, there is no financial assistance needed. If this isn't resolved at the PUCO level, then there would be a separate request for financial assistance, and we would decide what to do going forward at that point. That is the basics of it. Let me pull up. See the actual title of the ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Athens supporting the Ohio Municipal League's challenge of AT&T's tariff application at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and declaring an emergency. There's a lot of whereases on this. We can generally skip through those to the Section 1 for now. Section 1, Athens City Council finds that the AT&T tariffs application directly changes and significantly impacts, to the detriment of the City of Athens, how the city manages and administers its public rights-of-way. Section 2, Athens City Council hereby authorizes and agrees to participate and to intervene in the proceeding of the PUCO in order to challenge AT&T's tariff application and any subsequent and/or necessary legal, administrative, legislative efforts. Section 3, Athens City Council has been advised by the Ohio Municipal League that future financial and/or other support from the city may be necessary to the success of a challenge to AT&T's tariff application and any related legal, administrative, or legislative efforts. The City of Athens may take under consideration the specific amount or form of financial and/or other support from the city at a subsequent meeting of this council. Section 4, the immediate necessity for this action is declared an emergency for the preservation of public peace, health, and safety, and for the reasons set forth above, and this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage. The deadline of this is, I believe, today. this one today? The 14th or tomorrow?
As soon as I get a signature, I'll forward it to the municipal league first thing in the morning.
So, yeah, basically when we do the first reading, we would ask to suspend the rules and vote and pass it tonight. Adopt it tonight. Do we have any additional questions?
When I first read this, I didn't think it was a big deal because I'm thinking AT&T, what are we talking about? Phone, landlines, and all of that. But if you reread section 1 and picking up on your comments, this really isn't about AT&T. This is about control of our right-of-ways. And for that reason, I am in full support of suspending the rules when we get to the regular session of the thing and getting this thing passed and the law director's signature on it.
Thank you. Member Clefetter?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a real home rule issue. And if we let one major corporation basically take money from the city by shifting who's responsible for the charges, that you're right, that they would just be getting in line to do that. So I really hope we can defeat this.
Anyone else? All right. The second item we'll be looking at.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Not only is OML tracking this, but the Ohio Mayor's Alliance is tracking this. The Mayor's Partnership for Progress is tracking this. I'm glad it came up because that's exactly what's happening. This is another play to erode further home rule, our ability to self-govern, especially when it comes to utilities being planted wherever. I'll give you a great example. If this were to go through and there was, let's say, an ADA accessibility issue, I'll just pick a city or a village in Amesville, and they would like to see that pole be moved and placed somewhere else. For the village of Amesville, they're going to have to figure out how to finance removing that pole so that they don't have an ADA violation with just ease of transit across said sidewalk. And that could be any city in the state of Ohio. But my tendency is to look at a lot of the smaller cities and villages that truly don't have the general revenue coming in that other municipalities do, to where they don't think twice about, okay, well, I got to pay to move a pole or something like that. But here in the city of Athens, again, that cost is substantial. Even if we had a grant to have a street improvement, and part of that street improvement requires relocating poles, we're now going to have to use that. Even if it's grant funding that's paying for this improvement, we're going to take away from what the intention was, which was to improve a sidewalk, to improve a street, to improve whatever infrastructure, just to move a pole. So I really appreciate what I'm hearing at the dais tonight in terms of signing on to this. And I applaud you for doing this because this is important when it comes to home rule.
Thank you.
Member Thomas?
Yes.
Public may, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Would anyone in the public like to speak to this? Other elected official? There's only one tonight.
A real official.
Thank you. All right, now we can move on. The next item is another item sent to the law office that was passed forward. This is regarding a legal challenge brought forward from municipalities over the pricing of insulin and generic drugs. I'll read through just some basics explaining that, and then we'll go through some of the whereases. The first several.
Also the PFAS.
And the PFAS, yes. The first several whereases really explain a lot, and then the rest just become, the nitty-gritty details. This will authorize the mayor to execute a legal service contract with Grossman and Kelly LLP to prosecute on a contingency basis civil legal claims for price fixing in MDL 3080 insulin, MDL 2724 generic drugs, and for negligence resulting from injuries and property damage in MDL 2873 PFAS, and declaring an emergency. There is no cost up front on this. It is a contingency agreement with the firm regarding pricing of insulin and generic drugs. Insulin since 2003 and generic drugs since 2010. He will prosecute on behalf of the City of Athens in federal court. Move to the actual ordinance. This would be an ordinance authorizing the mayor or the service safety director to execute a legal services contract with Grossman and Kelly LLP to prosecute on a contingency basis civil legal claims for price fixing an MDL 3080 insulin, MDL 2724 generic drugs, and for negligence resulting in injury and property damage, and MDL 2873 PFAS, and declaring an emergency. Whereas litigation is pending in federal courts against any and all parties found to be responsible for price-fixing cases in multi-district litigation 3080 insulin and MDL 2724 generic drugs, and negligence resulting in injuries and property damage in MDL 2873 per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. Whereas Athens City Council has received communication from the law firm of Grossman and Kelly LLP concerning price-fixing cases for insulin MDL 3080 and generic drugs MDL 2724, and for negligence and injuries and property damage in MDL 2873 PFAS. Whereas the City of Athens, on behalf of its employees, purchased insulin and generic drugs through its health plan, and whereas traces of PFAS chemicals have been found in the City of Athens wells and finished water. I just felt like those whereases explained a little bit more deeply what the purpose of the lawsuit is. We can read through the sections 1 and 2 when we get to the actual reading, but for now, if anyone has any other questions.
You can go to the administration first.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. The law director and I had a Zoom meeting with Grossman and Kelly, and feel that this is not that dissimilar. As a matter of fact, it's very similar to what we've done under other class action lawsuits when it came to the opiate crisis to Purdue, but also to the pharmacies that were selling opiates. This is a little bit different in that this was basically price fixing to where we were likely paying higher than we needed to. And so to take this path, I do want to point out something because as you mentioned, the injuries and property damage associated with PFAS is in here. I'm compelled to tell council, this is important, that we do monitoring not only at the water treatment plant, but we go above and beyond. We're probably the only city of our size that actually tests the wells as well, to where it's the raw water that comes out, and we are well below the EPA levels. But in full disclosure, most water throughout the state of Ohio, and I would contend across the United States, has some level of PFAS in it. But this gives us protections when it comes to injuries and property damage. This is one of the things that the National League of Cities is not taking lightly. We're working very hard to make sure that at the federal level, when it comes to liability for communities, when it comes to the change in the EPA regulations for PFAS, that there are no liability protections at all for any community when it comes to that. Although we're hopeful that we can get not too late for the current administration, but we're hoping that we can get the incoming administration will continue this dialogue through the National League of Cities to make sure there's language added that speaks to liability, because that lends itself to things like the filters at the water treatment plant. Got to change those filters out. Will those filters have some level of PFAS in them? Yes, albeit low, they're there, and we have to ship those somewhere to a site that can actually receive them and is EPA certified to dispose of them. And that truck that is hauling them, let's say it happens to have an accident and it spills into a waterway. Who's liable? The city in which that contaminant came from. There are no protections when it comes to anything like that, even when it comes to the level of transporting materials that we are doing what we need to do to protect our water and our water supply here in the city of Athens. So giving you a little bit more context, but we feel strongly that when it comes to the medications, insulin and other medications where there was overpricing that took place, that we would see a fair and just way in which money that was overpriced to the city of Athens comes back to the city of Athens.
We do need to have the rules suspended tonight, and it has an emergency clause in that the deadline is January 14th. So the mayor tonight needs to sign the agreement, and I'll fax that, or actually I'll email it first thing in the morning to the law firm.
Any members of the public have any questions? Elected officials? Member Spank?
Yeah, I have quite a few. We got this. We were solicited, if I'm correct. And we were solicited by a firm on Long Island. Earlier this evening, we heard from Mr. Funk talking about doing things locally. It would be interesting to see, and it may be too late with what I just heard, it would be interesting if we could find an Ohio firm that would be willing to do this. I did some research on this over the weekend. There are firms all over the country who are soliciting multiple, we're talking scores of firms that are joining together to do this. So I have some questions. Do we have any idea, because these are the things that somebody here in the city is going to have to research. We are going to have some labor costs to provide information. Do we have any idea how much in this period of time we're talking about, because we are self-insured, and that's who they're going after, municipalities that are self-insured. Do we have any idea of how much insulin has been purchased on behalf of our employees? And when we figure that out, do we have any idea on how much money we might get back? I think those are legitimate questions. Yes, this is on a contingency basis, but if you read the contract, it's contingency of 33 1/3% plus fees. Fees are billable hours. I have some personal experience with this, that when they used to bill on the quarter hour, they now bill on the 10 minutes. So if this company, which interestingly enough, when you go to their website, it's not Grossman and Kelly, it's Kelly and Grossman, which I found to be rather interesting. When Kelly and Grossman sends an email to Lisa, they're billing her for at least 10 minutes to send that email. Lisa responds, they're billing her for at least 10 minutes. So if we were to get $100,000, they're going to take $33,333 plus their fees. Again, it doesn't cost anything. We're going to get something. But here's the kicker, and this is what concerns me the most. And I'm pretty much in favor of this, but these are concerns that I have. Let's say that all of these scores of these companies, these law firms all around the country win this case, and the money isn't divvied up yet because the insulin companies appeal. If we join that appeal, then we start paying. Then we start paying. And that amount we pay will be negotiable, but more than likely, Long Island firm, it's going to be at New York City rates. I have a fraternity brother, a little younger than I am, who is a partner in one of the largest law firms in New York City. I contacted him over the weekend to ask him about this and to ask him about this company. Well, nobody in his company has heard of this law firm. No, I'm not saying they're not a legitimate law firm, but they essentially have chased an ambulance here by contacting us. So again, I agree with the mayor. I'm pretty much in favor of this, but when we vote on this, we need to know these things. And probably the thing that concerns me the most, because I know, shouldn't say that, I suspect if the insulin companies lose, they will appeal, and then we're going to have to make a decision. Do we pay the piper to possibly get money for the city? And for the city, because this money's not going to go people who overpaid. It's going to go to the city. So we got this on the 6th, and we've got 8 days to figure it out. And that's not much time, but more importantly, we've got about an hour to figure this out. So just some things I want you to think about before we vote. Again, I think I'm in favor of this, but it's a slippery slope.
So the way this came about was Sunny Creek Horizons, Zach Space specifically contacted the mayor and asked to set up a meeting. And since there were documents, legal documents and procedures, I was asked to be involved. And we had the meeting during the snowstorm last Monday virtually. And the papers were provided to me, and along with perhaps what would need to go into an ordinance. I work very closely with the clerk on drafting these ordinances. But again, as you said, this only happened last Monday. And here we are this Monday with an ordinance that would have to have the rules suspended and have an emergency clause. I don't know if the mayor had anything else to add.
No.
And I did question the name of the law firm, and in an email, David Grossman said to me he actually sent another agreement that said Grossman and Kelly on it. He said he has multiple firms, and one firm does larger litigation, and a smaller firm does other litigation.
I will add there, because you did raise the question, Councilmember Swank, and that was, the time that would go into looking to see, how much insulin how many insulin prescriptions went out there, what the cost was, and generic meds, and the HR director is already looking into that. Not that difficult for the HR department to pull that particular data together. So that's already taking place.
I have a question that I guess, do you think there will be more lawsuits coming that if we decided not to go forward with this one, do we think that there would be a later date that we might decide it is beneficial to join, or is this?
What we
Or
were
who knows?
told is that the deadline for filing civil legal claims regarding these matters is January 14th. So,
The deadline based on, like, whose deadline?
apparently court's deadline. That if you're gonna file and be involved in these you saw in here the multi-district litigation, MDL litigation, if you're going to join in on that multi-district litigation, it has to be by tomorrow. But again, we just got this information last Monday, and quite frankly, worked pretty hard to pull the ordinances together, but this is really council's decision. And that's the information I can give you.
Member Swank?
To your question, what I found today in researching this, we have two choices. We could join this group, which is there's Louisiana, I saw Arkansas, I saw California, this group, and a judge somewhere, and I couldn't figure out what court this was in, has given this date. Or, to the question was asked, we could do it or go on alone. But the question is, would we have a firm who would be willing to take Athens? Probably not, because the pie just shrunk a whole bunch.
Yeah. So this basically comes down to if we want to join this class action suit or not. And if it turns into the
There's an
Amazon that comes down to you get your little tiny check, or if it, obviously not quite as large as that number-wise, but
But if there is a finding and a ruling and a distribution of funds, it has cost us nothing.
right.
If it goes to appeal, then we have to make that decision, and we can make that as a council or the next council, because this isn't going to be solved. Stimson Avenue Bridge will be done before this.
Any other discussion?
Thank you, Member Thomas. Appreciate you taking those on for the council. We will now move into a regular session of council. Our first order of business is to establish quorum. All council members are present this evening, and we have quorum. The next item of business is disposition of the minutes for the regular sessions of City Council held December 2nd and December 16th, 2024, as well as the special session of City Council held December 9th, 2024. May I do this all together? May I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes have been approved. We now have communications. Do any council members have communications they'd like to share? City reports and communications from other elected officials. I'm sorry, Law Director Eliza?
Well, perhaps we'll let Editor Hector.
Please,
Official,
please.
official.
No report.
Law Director Eliza.
Yes, so this is my annual report, and could you pass those down? Usually, I'm required by law to do it at the first regular meeting, that would have been last week during the snowstorm. Usually, there's not much going on at the first meeting. Just so happens that you have my big
Thank you.
So, anyway, you have my report. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because usually what I do is I give a lot of detail on the first year of council, but by this time you all pretty much know what my office does. So my office is called the Office of the Law Director and City Prosecutor. The law director's position is a 3/4 time, 30 hours a week. In our office, we have 2 legal secretaries. We have now an assistant, full-time assistant law director, although she works at 30 hours a week. 2 prosecutor positions, and as you know, 1 prosecutor position has been unfilled since October, but I had a meeting with someone today, an interview, and I'm hopeful that maybe we'll have a new prosecutor very soon. So our office on the prosecutorial side prosecutes misdemeanors that occur in the city of Athens and in the unincorporated areas of the county. And we are funded by the city of Athens, but also we get some money from Athens County, and the city code and the Ohio Revised Code both say that at whatever compensation the county commissioners wish to provide to the city for those cases. The cases are all prosecuted in municipal court. The bottom of page 1, we looked at as of December 30th, 2024, there were 1,454 criminal cases, 6,281 traffic, and 271 OVI cases filed in the municipal court for a total of 8,006. Now, in 2023, there were 7,751, so there's been a slight increase since 2023. In 2024, 684 defendants under diversion for driving or suspension, substance abuse, offenses involving alcohol, and I have an exhibit attached. And approximately 78% of those 8,006 cases waived court appearance. They paid the ticket, they just came in and paid, pleaded arraignment, entered diversion, or were prosecuted by another jurisdiction like Nelsonville. So the Athens city prosecutors, and specifically one who's been doing it since October, had direct involvement with about 22% of the cases, and this year we did 1,748. And those were from pretrial conferences, motion hearings, jury trials, and appeals. Now, this is a question Member Swank asked me last year, and I didn't have that answer for him, but I did subsequently provide that to him. So, of those 1,748 cases, 800 occurred in the city of Athens, including on Ohio University property, and 948 occurred outside the city of Athens in the unincorporated areas of the county. We still have about 276 cases from last year that are still open. I won't go into, we prosecute for a lot of different agencies in the city. It's the Athens City Police, Ohio University Police, Department of Liquor Control. Out in the county, it's the Sheriff's Department, Ohio State Highway Patrol. The Ohio State Highway Patrol comes in occasionally into the city and issues citations. We do the Dog Warden, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and Department of Taxation. It's a wide variety of cases. And last year I wasn't able to do this because we were in the process of going virtual, and we have a program called Matrix, but this year, well, virtual in that we're paperless. We use Matrix program, but if you take a look at Exhibit B, that tells you some of the cases, the kinds of cases that we prosecute. We prosecute anything from an OVI case, vehicular manslaughter, down to minor misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, or a traffic case. So that's the criminal side. I have listed on page 3 some of the things that the prosecutors do, and our prosecutors are available any time of the day or night to answer questions of law enforcement, and all law enforcement in the county and the city have their cell phone numbers and do call upon them to answer questions for them. So that's basically the criminal side, and page 3 tells you just what the prosecutors, what else they do, including collecting restitution in criminal cases. So the civil side is my side, and now I have an assistant law director. We do the civil work for the city, and I issue formal legal opinions. Last year we had one from outside counsel because of a conflict between the city school district that I represent and the Ohio Civil Service Commission I represent. So I asked an attorney outside counsel to issue a formal legal opinion on that. But you can see some of the things that we do, or what I do and what the assistant law director does. We handle most of the property work, the real estate work, easements, and that sort of thing. We handle those in-house now, and that wasn't always the case. But assistant law director has a lot of experience in real estate, and she's able to handle that. We do those together. But a lot of times people will say, you sit up there and you don't really talk. Well, there's no reason for me to, except that I am parliamentarian. All the work gets done on the ordinances, as you know, beforehand. And we work on those very closely with the clerk to make sure that those ordinances are in very good order for you. And it's a rare occasion where something slips in. Maybe we'll have a Scrivener's error or something like that. But you can see on page 4 what legal services I provide. And then section B is pending civil litigation. Last year, we didn't have any cases at this time, but we do now. The State of Ohio versus City of Athens on the single-use plastic, our last brief in the trial court, as you know, we wrote 3 briefs on the summary judgment, and then when it was not in our favor, we appealed to the Court of Appeals, and our brief was due. The state has filed theirs, and on Friday, we only had 10-day turnaround to file this next brief, so it's due on Friday, so we're working on that. The next thing that will happen in that is that oral argument will be set. And so once it's briefed, there are oral arguments, then the Court of Appeals will make a decision on the single-use plastic. The East State Street development, the Quidel case, a telephone status conference was held December 19th, scheduled discovery motions and trial dates, and our office works with outside legal counsel to manage the litigation. There was one that was a Bureau of Workers' Compensation case. Those come up occasionally, and that one the city filed a notice of non-participation. There was no financial impact on the city's experience or premiums. One that you probably know about, but I wanted to include it, is the City of Columbus versus State of Ohio, and we joined in on that case. And the City of Columbus prevailed in the trial court, and it's up on appeal. And the case has been fully briefed, and oral arguments will likely occur in mid-March. And the last one, City of Athens versus John or Jane Doe, the unjust enrichment. I think you all know about that. And there was a recent development. I don't know if the mayor wants to talk about it or. Okay, well, I'll let the mayor talk about that. It was a motion to intervene that you'll find very interesting. So I'll let him talk about it at that time. That's a report of my business for the year. I will be glad to take any questions you might have.
This isn't a question, but, you know, we did a nice job going through this fairly quickly. And you did prosecute one income tax case on here is what you had, but you also do a lot more than that for the income tax department. When we have delinquent taxpayers that we have sent, there's a process for us to try to collect, send a certain number of letters and timeframes that they have to respond and stuff like that. And when they don't, we turn people over to the law director's office. And so they send out, you know, quite a few letters on our behalf. People often respond to those letters after ignoring several of ours, so they're more afraid of the law director than the city auditor, I guess. But that is an ongoing thing that they help our office with.
You know, we prosecute, we send code letters, we prosecute code cases. In the interest of time here, I was hoping that you would take a look at those and see just the kinds of things that we do. We're pretty busy up there, so.
Yeah, on page 2, you talk about the office prosecutes misdemeanors on behalf of the city police, et cetera. You didn't specifically mention code enforcement. I know that that is part of your responsibility. I only noticed one prosecution for code enforcement, and I had the impression that there were more issues than that, so I was curious.
There would be letters that were sent, but last year there was just one prosecution. But you're right, I need to add on there code enforcement for next year. So we prosecute, when it reaches the prosecution level, someone from code enforcement has to come and sign the criminal complaint. We don't do that on our own. It's up to the code office to sign a criminal complaint, and then they're the witness in the case.
Has that been resolved, that one?
I believe it was.
Okay.
That one may have been resolved, actually. I think that's one I have on my radar right now, that there's a warrant that was issued. So, and that does happen. If there's a warrant issued, it's on a minor misdemeanor, and there is an additional step to take, and we recently did that, in that you can get a warrant block on a driver's license. A lot of times a warrant won't get anyone's attention, but a warrant block on a driver's license, if you get a letter from BMV that says you have a warrant block and you're not going to be able to drive, that does get people's attention, and I know that that happens in municipal court. So,
okay,
I'll probably have more to report on next year on code enforcement. I've been doing those cases just because we've been short-staffed, so I am pretty familiar with the letters that I wrote and what's happening next in them.
Okay, thank you.
I couldn't help noticing that in your discussion of the combination of criminal cases, OVI cases, and traffic cases, of the 22% that your office actually took forward in various ways, 800 of those cases occurred in the city of Athens, counting OU, and 948 occurred in unincorporated areas of the county. And I just wondered, with the majority of those cases coming from the county, not the city, Do you feel that the county is paying a fair percentage of your office's budget?
Well, I think I wrote on here how much we received. I did, I know I did, because I asked for a 2% increase, and I believe that it was granted, and this year it's going to be 82,190.
From the county?
From the county, that they're going to pay. I've just sent an invoice to them. I've been going up for a long time. It was 49,000, and then after I did quite a bit of research and tried to really break it down as to what came from where, then I realized that we should be asking for more money. This 82,190 will pay one salary. It won't pay the benefits, but it'll pay for one prosecutor. And, you know, we had 3 positions in the office that were prosecutors, and the caseload has gone down. And so I reassigned duties so that I had the assistant law director, part-time prosecutor, but we really didn't need that extra position. We're good with 2 full-time city prosecutors. We can handle the cases. So we moved one of the prosecutor cases, or one of the prosecutor positions, to assistant law director, because that's where we really needed the help. We have a lot more going on the civil side than we ever have. And I listed some of the things that we do, you know, what we've reviewed, the new community authority, the ACIC, it could go on and on, the PACE financing. Those were all things that our office, although we didn't draft those, some of the things we worked on drafting, but we did participate in bringing them all together and drafting the ordinances. So we have a lot of work we have enough work for the law director and an assistant law director, and we have enough work for a prosecutor, 2 prosecutors. So the money we get from the county pays for one position, but it doesn't pay benefits. So. Wow. But that was a question that Member Swank asked last year. So.
Thank you.
And the Ohio Revised Code and the Athens City Code both have identical language, and it says we shall receive additional compensation for such services as the Board of County Commissioners prescribes.
Yeah. Follow-up question. If I understood you correctly, the county's paying for the salary, not the benefits of one prosecutor. That means the city's paying for one prosecutor and the 3/4 time law director and the assistant law director.
Well, and because the law director and the assistant law director, we're only doing, I supervise the prosecutors, yes. And if, I know exactly what's going on with the prosecutions. If it's a particularly difficult case, I get involved. But the city's paying for the law director and the assistant law director and one of the prosecutor positions, and obviously the benefits, and overall for the administration of the office. This is all prescribed by the Ohio Revised Code, and our city code, the language mirrors the Ohio Revised Code. This is, oh goodness, sorry. This is a question that isn't just my question or your question as far as how things are financed between the city and the county. And I have raised it with the Ohio Municipal League in the past. You know, we've had discussions about it. Is there another way to go about it? But I don't know that there is, except to continue to ask for money. When I started, it had been $49,000 for several years. And I looked at every case, tried to figure out what came from the city, what came from the county, and started asking for more money. And then this year was a 2% increase that I requested. There's no responsibility of the county prosecutor to prosecute misdemeanors. The Ohio Revised Code, specifically 1901-34A, and then C talks about the compensation. So.
Thank you, Law Director. Any other questions for the Law Director on her report? Thank you. We appreciate your
you.
work. Mayor, communications?
I do have a few, President Crowell, that I wanted to mention tonight. First, I guess to follow on the comment that was made by the law director a moment ago about a case that's ongoing. And I do want to remind council that this is still a very active case as we look at the issue of the city being victims to fraud with the $722,000. We just received notice, and I know the media has reported on this, even though we had just gotten the information. And it's worth repeating to council tonight, and that is that the Republic Bank and Trade made a motion on January 10th of 2025. This filing includes a request for the court to adjudicate how recovered funds are to be paid back to the city. Here's the good news. The bank account had been identified. Some of the money has been recovered. The amount recovered from the fraudulent account is $349,522.10. Approximately half of the money that the city had been frauded, the fraudulent account had basically stolen from the city. So more to follow on this as we learn how this is going to play out for the city recuperating or receiving our funding back on this particular case. But again, it's important for council to know that this still is a criminal and civil investigation that is ongoing to hopefully unearth more of the money that the city was defrauded. So that's one thing I want to share with council. The next thing with council is that the city, we're about to sign or establish an MOU with the Gathering Place for this year to use the former fire station headquarters, which has 12 Murphy beds. It has shower and bathroom facilities. It has a kitchen in it. It has a day room to use as a severe weather shelter / warming station. The upside of using the fire station headquarters or the former fire station headquarters as opposed to using Arts West or the community center is that there is still programming going on in Arts West and the community center, which would lead to someone being able to potentially sleep there at night if we were to activate those, but they would have to vacate when programming started up because we're under contract with the various entities to use those facilities. This is not the case for the former fire station headquarters. So this will be a wonderful use of that space. I do want to repeat that would be great for this year. Because we would still like to see that facility, which has great commercial value moving forward, being, with council's approval, migrated into the Athens city CIC, and finding a proper end user for that particular facility. But for this terribly cold spell that we're experiencing right now, that this could be used as soon as this MOU is signed. The Gathering Place has said that they would do the staffing with volunteers of this center, which would be wonderful. I have to say, the executive director for the Gathering Place is doing amazing work. Almost as a workforce of one when it comes to the social work, working with people who are unhoused, people who are living with various different challenges. And Director Stone has been working very closely with Ginger on this particular project. So I want to update council on that. The next thing is also a nice piece of news, and that is that Council Member Alan Swank will be serving as the city's representative to the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, of which the City of Athens is a customer under their gas aggregation program. So Councilmember Swank, thank you for stepping up to serve in that capacity. I did it for 5 years. I learned a lot. Again, I appreciate, and I know that NOPEC's in good hands with you being on the board of directors for NOPEC, so thank you. The last thing to share with council, and I know President Crowell is tracking this because President Crowell becomes acting mayor when I'm away. On Wednesday, I will be heading to Washington, D.C. I'll be attending several different meetings, of which I belong to different organizations. The first one being the Mayor's Innovation Project, speaking on the charging and fueling infrastructure grant that we were successful through SOPEC in bringing for charge points from Dayton to the city of Athens and beyond. I will also be attending while I'm there the U.S. Conference of Mayors, of which we are a member. I am a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I have a speaking engagement at the plenary session in my role as the president for the National League of Cities, which I'm looking forward to because the current president for the U.S. Conference of Mayors is Mayor Andrew Ginther of Columbus. So we have two state of Ohio electeds who are holding some pretty significant roles in the United States right now. And then I will also be speaking on a panel, which I'm extremely excited about because it's very poignant to some of the conversations that took place tonight, and that is I'm on a panel during an event that is basically called The Moment for Housing is Now, a summit to envision how cities' futures, to envision our city's futures with today's leading mayors and housing. I will be in great company with Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C. on a panel, Mayor Ron Nirenberg, who will be on the same panel as I am, speaking on the state of housing and its impacts on cities, Mayor Corey Woods of Tempe, Arizona, and Mayor Paul Young, and many other people. Mayor Paul Young is the mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. So it's going to be an amazing conference to be a part of. It's a one-day event discussing how municipalities are becoming more and more creative with how we address our housing needs in our communities, whether it's workforce housing, senior housing, or equity-bearing housing for individuals. And I'm certainly going to mention the progress that has been made with the Sunset Motel and the work that HAPCAP has put into making that a unit for emergency housing for recently unhoused individuals. That's all I have, Councilmember, or President Crow.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate your work.
Sam,
we have no
just-
ordinances
Sam,
for.
I'm sorry. I should have said something earlier.
Please.
I apologize. Okay, so, and thank you for bringing up all those wonderful things about the Sunset Motel. You picked it up, but you didn't say the important point, and that is that officially HAPCAP owns that building and has $2 million. Of course, they'll need more funding, so thank you very much if you donate to them, and also donate to the Gathering Place to help with that. And I just want to say that I've gotten more comments, emails, messages about concern for the unhoused during this critical period than just about anything else since I've been in council. So, you know, we're seeing whole families where there are working parents living in cars and that we're suddenly finding out are living in cars and they've been too uncomfortable to actually come forward until it's so cold that they have to. So there's a lot of people out there that really need some help. So I think it's great that the fire station, the old fire station will be, but that's temporary. You know, long-term, we need to come up with some new strategies that hopefully will work from the city as well as all the other entities like the Gathering Place who are working on this. So thank you for that. It's great for now. We'll see what happens in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We have no ordinances for third reading, so we will now move on to ordinances for second reading. I will read the title and then check to see if there are any comments or questions. Ordinance 137-24 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 116-24 to increase non-union compensation for the Assistant Law Director and Prosecutor, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Okay, and that is our only ordinance for second reading. Now move on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 01-25. is an ordinance amending Ordinance 14-24, authorizing the East State Street Signal Improvements Project, number 367, and authorizing the auditor to make an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Spionis.
Thank you. As you recall, we talked about this earlier, so I don't feel like I need to go into this at great depth considering the late hour and how much more we have to do. But essentially, it's an ordinance authorizing the East State Street Signal Improvements Project and authorizing the auditor to make an interfund transfer. And Section 2 says the 2025 appropriation ordinance 0115-24 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $230,000 to Street Fund 220 TC 500 and $230,000 to the TIF Fund 593, et cetera, and the auditor is hereby authorized to make the following interfund transfers from TIF Fund 593, Street Fund to Street Fund 220, amount $450,000. The Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend up to $879,658 for said project, et cetera. So this is something that we hope to get done. We've talked about it as being a great opportunity to make our East State Street corridor safer and the traffic move more slowly. I mean, more smoothly, excuse me.
Slower works.
Slower sometimes, but sometimes that's good.
Thank you, Member Spionis. Any comments or questions on this ordinance? Okay, moving on to Ordinance 0225, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a development services agreement with Community Building Partners, LLC, and a purchasing program grant agreement with the state of Ohio for the Welcome Home Ohio program, project number 381, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
We discussed this in great detail about an hour ago. Basically, this allows Director Stone to get the ball rolling on building owner-occupied housing, up to 8 units to get started here in the city of Athens.
Thank you, Member Swank. Any comments or questions? Mayor?
Just a friendly reminder to amend that amount to include the
24,000, yeah. Thank
So
you.
it's straight $2 million. $2,004,000. Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Ordinance 03-25 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 120-24, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract extension to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Economic Development Council and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed this topic about an hour ago. Allow me to read the pertinent section. Excuse me. Section 1 of Ordinance 120-24 is hereby amended to read as follows. Section 1, the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into a contract extension through December 31st, 2027 to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Economic Development Council, ACEDC, in the amount of $65,000 annually for the general fund, from the general fund. A copy of said agreement and ACEDC deliverables is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. So,
Thank you, Member Eisner. Any comments or questions on this ordinance? Okay, moving on.
Are we declaring an emergency?
There's no motion on the table.
no. I never heard
Agreed.
anything to confirm whether or not to,
We don't even have a bill yet.
no.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Just to echo what the auditor had stated, and that is that this comes out of the first quarter of the TGT, and so
Okay.
we're within that quarter right now.
Right.
Thank you. Moving on. Ordinance 04-25 is an ordinance of the City of Athens supporting the Ohio Municipal League's challenge of AT&T's tariff application at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and declaring an emergency, introduced by all council members, and Member Thomas is going to handle this for us.
Yes, we need a motion to suspend the rules.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any comments or questions on this suspension? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has been approved and the rules are suspended. Member Thomas.
Great. So we, as with everything else, discussed this about an hour and a half ago. We've read through section 1s, 2, 3, and 4. I can read those again, or
No,
we can move
that's,
straight to voting.
We can, yeah.
Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 04-25. Are there any comments or questions? Administration? Public, auditor? Okay. All those in favor of adopting 04-25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is approved and the ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 05-25 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a legal services contract with Grossman and Kelly, LLP, to prosecute on a contingency basis civil legal claims for price fixing in MDL 3080 insulin and MDL 2724 generic drugs, and for negligence resulting in injuries and property damage in MDL 2873 PFAS, and declaring an emergency, introduced by all council members, but Member Thomas will handle this for us.
Thank you. Same as the last one, we discussed this an hour ago. We need a motion to suspend. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for ordinance 05-25. Any questions or comments on the suspension? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion has been approved. The rules are suspended, Member Thomas.
Okay. We've read through the whereases and sections 1 and 2. Does anyone have any other questions or thoughts, or we can move to a vote?
Member Wood.
Yeah, we've had all of an hour to think about this, and it just sets off a lot of alarm bells for me. Whenever somebody shows up and says, you gotta take a deal, you gotta take it this now, within a week, that sets me off. We have other opportunities to pick this up later, and we're committing to a multi-year process on 1 hour debate. So for those reasons, I'm against it.
Thank you, Member Wood. Any other comments or questions? Member McCary.
I would appreciate hearing any thoughts people have or information about those other opportunities. I understand hypothetically they might exist, but I understand also that we're small if we're not part of this larger action. So do folks have any thoughts on future opportunities if we don't take advantage of this one?
Folks like maybe the law director.
Well, again, this just came to me last Monday and was brought to us by Sunday Creek Horizons, and who introduced us to David Grossman, and we used the mayor himself to David Grossman via Zoom. It came to us rather rapidly. I have no idea what other opportunities we would have. This is multi-district litigation, and according to Mr. Grossman, we have until, would have to be passed tonight, and I presume they would file the litigation immediately. It can't be filed until the mayor signs this agreement. You have the agreement attached, and that's really all I know. According to Mr. Grossman, the deadline for filing civil legal claims regarding these matters is January 14th, 2025. That's all I know.
Member
And I
Swank?
can only,
I'm sorry.
tell talked about a big ambulance chase, I think that's what you said, but it was brought to us by Sunday Creek Horizons and Zach Space, who have not failed us in the past. So I can only trust that their opinion on it is it's something that we would be or should be interested in pursuing. But again, this is council's decision. I just helped the clerk draft the ordinance and reviewed everything, and it's really a decision for council, and that's really all I know.
Member Swank?
She can go, then I can go.
Member Clodfelder?
Just point of clarification, Law Director, if you don't mind, just to be clear, is the deadline for anyone to submit any civic litigation about this tomorrow?
That's what we were told.
Okay, so
Yes.
there would, if that is the case, then there would be no other opportunity to go with anybody else. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
What you said earlier was we could.
Hold on, Member Wood. Member Swank?
Two things. Based on what I read, and I'm not an attorney, I'm a layperson like the rest of the folks up here. For this particular group of people in this particular court, tomorrow is the deadline.
That's my understanding.
So, in essence, the law firm is telling us the truth, but we're not hearing the whole story. And the whole story is the answer to your question. Again, this particular case, representing this particular group of municipalities in this particular court, the deadline is tomorrow. But going back to Member Wood's comments, I'm of like mind because, in a sense, I feel like, I hate to use this thing, we are being pressured. On the other hand, this isn't going to cost us a penny. And we've already heard that the research is already being conducted. It's not like we have, like the city of Columbus, 5,000 city employees. We have a limited number of employees. So I can't imagine it's going to take that much time, although it will take some time. We have to acknowledge that, to be fair. The only time this could cost us any money is if it goes to appeal. At that point in time, we're going to have plenty of time to review this, and we can make a decision at that point in time whether to vote to expend city funds or not. And that's the only reason I'm going to vote yes for this, but it does leave a very bad taste in my mouth.
Member Wood?
I mean, we don't know how the voting will work in the class. I mean, if we get outvoted on that appeal, and I mean, you look at the example that was given as far as the opioid crisis, those are still ongoing. The DuPont items are still fighting. Yeah, I don't like any high-pressure decision like that. I don't think it's a good way to make decisions. And it strikes me as a sales pitch that I'm uncomfortable with, so.
Member Spells?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to rush either. On the other hand, because I do trust Zach Space on this. I mean, they've already vetted this. They know the law firm, apparently. They brought it to us. If it had just come out of nowhere, I would say absolutely not. But I get it, but I think I'm leaning the other direction, so.
Any other comments or questions from council? Mayor?
I just need a clarification. Councilmember Woods, you made comment about cases with the opiate settlements. Could you repeat what you said? Because I don't know that I completely understood. Because we're in 3. We've been part of 3 class actions. We were successful with the first 2, so those are done. We're receiving funding that is coming to the city of Athens into our line item that has to do with the settlement. The Kroger case is still, we haven't heard back on that particular class action lawsuit. So is that what you were referencing? Or maybe I just misheard you.
No, thank you. The example that kicked off the conversation was talking about the opioid settlements.
Sure.
In global sense. I was not talking about our own. But I believe the ones we have been involved in were all appealed, right? I mean, no?
No, it was settled, and if I may?
Please continue.
Just one more I just want to add to this conversation, which I think is wonderful, you know, hearing everybody talking about this, quite honestly. There's a significant level of confidence I have in our HR director identifying and pulling together those numbers for both the generic and insulin. When I became mayor in 2016, one of the first things that I did is I wanted to do a reset on our TPA, on our prescription services and things of that nature. And one of the things that we found was that there was some evidence of overpricing, even though the language was different than we're talking about here, but there was something that just didn't seem right with what we were paying for different meds at that time versus what we're paying now. And so, you know, the HR director is going to actually be going back to 2003 and looking at the medications that were purchased. So, Councilmember Swank, it's going to take some time, but when I've had the conversation with Ron Lucas, Director Lucas, about doing this, he looked at me and he said, absolutely. If we can find any, you know, recoup of overpayment for different medications, that he felt strongly that this is an approach that we should take, but that's coming from the HR director, just to share with you.
Auditor?
What is the downside for us right now? We are gathering information, it's not costing us anything, is that correct?
Correct.
If it goes to appeal, are we obligated to join that appeal? Or we get to make a decision at that point? So we might not be spending any more money. So I guess I just want to clarify about what we're obligating ourselves to and what the downside is, which I guess I don't see it, at least for this beginning phase.
Other comments or questions on this? Yes, Member McCary.
Thank you. I'm thinking about what we've learned about our general fund and the impact of medical expenses, and this seems like a nice way to recoup some costs of our medical insurance. Not incredibly significant potentially, but I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Member McCary. Anybody else from council? Anyone from the public like to share their thoughts or have any questions on this ordinance? Seeing none, we have a motion and a,
I don't think we've.
oh, we don't, I'm sorry.
Second yet to
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 0520?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions on the motion and second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion has been approved. The ordinance has been approved. We now move on to announcements and other business. May I have a motion to approve the November 2024 credit card transactions?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the credit card transactions. Are there any comments or questions on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has been approved. We now have an opportunity for citizens.
I have an announcement.
Yes, please.
This is a notice of public hearing which was published in the newspaper on Saturday, December 21st. Athens City Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 in the council chambers on the third floor of the city building. This public hearing is to consider amending the Athens City Zoning Code sign regulations, section 23.03.13L2, temporary signs, to increase the size of political or ideological signs from 350 square inches to 432 square inches. The full text of the recommendation is available by contacting Debbie Walker at dwalker@ci.athens.oh.us. Interested parties are invited to attend and express their opinion with respect thereto. Anyone needing special accommodations to attend the meeting should contact the City Council office, 8 East Washington Street, Athens, Ohio, 740-592-3342. So we'll have a public hearing at 7 o'clock next Tuesday And you might want to note that next Monday is a national holiday. We do not meet on national holidays, so we meet on the following day, which is Tuesday, the 21st, at 7 o'clock. It's Martin Luther King Day as Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Swank. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Swank. You just reminded me, and this is probably worth mentioning to everyone, even though I did it during my press conference earlier, there's also a one-day trash delay. So keep that in mind for next week with Martin Luther King Day coming upon us.
Okay, we now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Does anyone wish to speak? 3 minutes, please. Ms. Abel.
Thank you. Mary Abel, 48 Strathmore. I just need a clarification on something that the mayor said, and I like to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. On the cyber heist, the press reported that there was another company in Florida that was also scammed and money deposited in the same account, and that a judge was going to decide how that money was split. Now, has that already been decided and we're going to get this $300-some thousand, or is a judge yet to rule on that?
It has not been ruled upon at this point in time, but the other party, to my knowledge, still doesn't even know that they have been scammed out of money. So that's going to be part of what the judge is going through. We're the entity that created this all to begin with to start. And as this became unearthed that there was a second party that had been victim to a scam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abel. Are there any other comments or questions from the public?
Hello. I'm Sarah Koya Bryant. I have a business at 13 West Union Street, barely hanging on between Grub and Go at 11 West Union Street, which is closed, and Jack Neal Florist, which is closing. So as you know, I'm having problems with the public right-of-way, the sidewalk not being open. I asked to be on the agenda, but I was told no because I have my sidewalk. Well, today, after the sidewalk was installed on the 4th of January, today being the 13th, it was partially removed. There were poles there with tape, or without tape, so students are essentially walking in the road again. Sidewalk closures are permitted for taking care of construction of the sidewalk. They're not permitted for ongoing storage of other people's things. So I asked the city safety director why these things were still on the sidewalk, and then I asked him for the plans, the written plans about the sidewalk repair, and I was told these plans do not exist. So according to our own city code 9/12/12, that when you apply for a sidewalk closure, that these plans shall be submitted in writing. This is not may, it's shall. That means these plans should exist, and they're not being offered to me, or they really don't exist. So after approval of a sidewalk permit for construction, the permittee shall immediately improve the sidewalk without unnecessary delay. And the safety director shall supervise the construction or repair and see that it has been faithfully performed. Well, that's not happening. Instead, permit after permit is being extended. So I asked Andy Stone why this is happening, and he said that renovating is very difficult. I got an email back from him on the 4th or the 2nd of January about my additional records not existing, and he said that renovating a 100-year-old building is difficult. That's why you should have plans, right, in writing of what's going on in there. So he also stated It is not in the interest, it is not in Athens' interest to include the interest of other uptown businesses to have this building vacant for years. He says he realizes that it creates an obstruction, but it's necessary for renovations, which in the end will benefit everyone. Okay, so I had to ask him, is this your personal opinion, or is this the legal is this the legal opinion of the city? That it's not, it's in nobody's best interest. So of course I didn't get an answer from him. So we have organized a town hall meeting on January 22nd, and I hope you all can attend. It is at the community center where there's ample parking from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And I just want to leave with Title 97 of our Muni Code, and it is section 0104, 90104. The right to self-government. All residents of the city of Athens possess a fundamental and inalienable right to form a government where they live, which recognizes that all power is inherent in the people, that the free governments are founded on the people's authority and consent, that neither individuals nor corporate entities and their directors and managers shall enjoy special privileges or powers under the color of state law, which purports to make community majorities subordinate to them. Now let's read Ohio Constitution, Article 1. All political power is inherent in the people. The government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit.
Thank you, Ms.
That's not
Bryant.
what's happening.
Thank
It
you.
is not to my equal benefit.
Thank you for speaking.
Cutting me off.
Is there anyone else, please?
Downward Chapter, Canaanville Road, Athens. I wanted to take my 3 minutes to try to explain why this store owner is so upset. This started off on September 15th as a 30-day sidewalk closure so they could repair the sidewalk. The city extended that without any input from the neighbors for another month on October 15th. It got extended for another month on November 15th. In each of those permits, they were told to have an alternate walkway with marking and all these things. They didn't do it. Finally, on December 15th, they came in and they wanted a 60-day or 90-day permit. And so this has gone until February. And that's not enough. There is no construction going on there. This is not going on. There's all these different restaurants and things supposed to be built. They're not doing it. It's a dead project. They are not doing it. So we're allowing them to park their stuff, work on that other contract that the city gave them for the corner cuts. But they're not working on that building. They don't have money to work on the building. Something else is going on with that building. But meanwhile, they're shutting down that corner of the city. And wait till you see what happens when that construction actually does start. When you have 5 different contractors there, all the different subcontractors, everybody trying to get materials in there at the same time. That corner is going to be a mess for years to come. And it was preventable with good planning. We just don't have that good planning here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to speak on items not covered on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned at 10:08 PM.